Chapter 1108. So you're saying that it was a false alarm in the end? Luo Nan bent his fingers and elbows. His suspended body slowly sank down, but his tone was as calm as usual. Bamboo Pole's voice came through the hex ear. Wei Wu is in the orphanage. He hasn't cut off contact with the camp. Dean Wan has a good reputation there. Of course, the protest team is restrained for now. Isn't that good? It's still troublesome for you. Bamboo Pole introduced the current situation. The protest team has already set up camp in the municipal plaza. The government is doing a bit better right now, but the citizens who are highly sensitive to the mutation infection are going crazy. Sporadic conflicts are occurring, and they will only get worse in the future. The central city is still over a dozen kilometers away from here. The problem is that the chaos caused by the mutation prevention and control policy can all be linked to you. That's right. You're just that shameless. And it happened in Xia City, in your base camp. You'll be very passive in terms of public opinion and evaluation. Okay, that's right. The global census was an extremely sensitive operation. It was mixed with complicated interests, positions, and practical contradictions. Many people were unwilling to accept Luo Nan's plan. They didn't oppose him face to face because they were afraid of Luo Nan's extraordinary strength. They didn't want to run head-on into him. But if there was a chance to delay and obstruct him, they wouldn't be lenient. Luo Nan had considered this problem long ago, but it wasn't something he could control. It wasn't something he should focus on with his limited energy. He just needed to understand it. In comparison, it was better to consider some more important fields that he was better at. Luo Nan returned from his one-finger handstand. He didn't even sweat a few drops. In fact, he wasn't training. He was just observing the state of his body. He only found out about this matter the next morning. It was because he was pondering over the interaction between his body and the magnetic photon mica. He was studying and familiarizing himself with the special perspective that exceeded human imagination. Bamboo Pole didn't say too much to Luo Nan now that he knew about Luo Nan's attitude. The newly formed team of the Foundation had already formed a consensus. Luo Nan was in charge of extraordinary work in this team. Everyone else only dealt with regular problems. It was enough to just give Luo Nan a reminder about the relevant matters. Bamboo Pole cut off the voice communication. Luo Nan scrubbed through the group chat records from last night as he scrubbed. He understood the details of the matter a step further. Bamboo Pole's introduction was very comprehensive. There wasn't much to say about the situation back then. Instead, it was the various social media channels that made things a bit more lively. Many people in the media, social activists, and public figures had already caught a glimpse of the opportunities within. They began to sing one after the other. Luo Nan hastily flipped through a few articles. He could see that Bamboo Pole, this crazy forwarding demon, had lost interest in similar information. From the wee hours of the morning until breakfast time, the mainstream of information had already changed to nutrition products. Luo Nan casually clicked open a dozen or so videos. Yes, they were indeed very pleasing to the eye. Let's just treat it as a massage for his brain that had been consuming a lot lately. Luo doing he needed. Luo he needed to. Luo needed. He needed. Luo. In as. Luo Nan as long as he said. He said, bamboo that the said. Luo Nan. Luo clan song. He said, he saying, as, the saying, he, as he saying. As he. This was the value of a data specialist. However, it was often at this time that Luo Nan couldn't help but criticize his own subtle attitude and actions. How depraved. Luo Nan, who was already seated at the dining table, let out a sigh. Breakfast isn't good? Madame Luo Shuqing, who had just urged the AI butler to complete the breakfast task, was at a sensitive moment. It's okay. Luo Nan said truthfully, the downloaded module is worth the money. Mo Peng immediately looked at him with admiration. This morning, there were only 3 of them at the dining table. Professor Mo Hai Hang, who was usually in charge of the kitchen, had gone straight to work after yesterday's birthday party because he was working overtime. Mo Ye and Rui Wen kept their word and stayed in the recording studio for the whole night. With half of the people gone, the atmosphere around the table was indeed a little quieter, but that was as far as it went. Don't talk so much if you don't have anything to say. Take care of your voice. All right. Luo Nan subconsciously dug at the slightly protruding Adam's apple on his neck. Speaking of which, his voice had been growing hoarser and hoarser these past few days. He had clearly entered the stage of voice change. Luo Nan's uncle and aunt let out visible sighs of relief following this change. Though they didn't say anything in the past 2 years, they still cared a bit about Luo Nan's puberty, which was clearly lagging behind his peers. As a result, Luo Nan returned to his normal family life in late May. Small details like his voice change, his beard, and so on became increasingly clear. It might be related to his delayed puberty. Though the reverse stimulation of the magneto-optical mica and even the grooming and adjustment of the perfect body might have played a larger role. Yep, it was puberty. His instincts. A bit of depravity was definitely due to the need to conform to the instincts of living beings that evolved over millions and millions of years. While Luo Nan's mind was spinning with all sorts of messy thoughts, his aunt picked up another call. It should be from Mo Ya. Luo Nan didn't mind. He just subconsciously opened the new link that Bamboo Pole sent. Only this time, it wasn't those snow-white colors and soft and smooth curves. Instead, it was replaced with a set of relatively abstract characters and symbols. It looked like it was a random drawing of the mood equals or is not equal to. Is it really that hard to get the answer? The accompanying picture was that of a city plaza that was brilliantly lit. Luo Nan's mind spent approximately 3 seconds before he was able to switch channels. But he became confused because of the meaning behind this rather obscure description. The source of the message came from an extremely popular image-sharing social media. Luo Nan subconsciously looked towards the upper left corner of the image. It was a rather familiar avatar. It was so familiar that it made him even more confused. And at this time, Octopus popped up in the group chat. This is Shui Yuan, right? The big sister captain of BHD. That's right, she's the captain. You can call her housekeeper. What the hell is big sister captain? Bamboo Pole, who forwarded the message, immediately retorted. It had to be said that Luo Nan was the only one who intersected with the BHD circle in Xia City. Cat eyes could be counted as well, but this sister was very clear about the distinction between the mortal world and the inner world. Luo Nan and Dal Baiyu were closer in age within the BHD trio. Baiyu was the one who got familiar with people. Everyone would occasionally chat online, so she was the closest of the 3. Next was Clara. Luo Nan had encountered and solved 2 of her troubles in a row. It was hard not to have any impression of her. Comparatively speaking, Luo Nan and Shui Yuan were the least familiar. However, last time at Aurora Cloud City, the BHD trio had performed at the New Year's Eve event. Bamboo Pole saw it. He liked Shui Yuan the most, so he specifically followed her social media account. Shui Yuan was a fitness expert. She often shared fitness photos and videos on her social media account. Therefore, every time Bamboo Pole forwarded a link to his friend circle, there would often be Shui Yuan's work. It was quite pleasing to the eye. Luo Nan was certain. But this time, it was clearly different. Is she alluding to the aberration infection? Qi Nikuan, who had intersected with the BHD trio in the past, came out of his lurking state. She should be talking about the missing migration. Octopus analyzed. The picture of the municipal plaza speaks volumes. Even if she wasn't, the public believed that she was at such a sensitive time. Sporadic curses could already be seen in the comments section. This was because Shui Yuan herself was a little transparent among the artists. Even though the team had improved over the past half year, they had only risen from a group that could be cut off at any time to a marginalized group that needed to crazily rush shows in order to barely support their operating expenses. But no matter what was said, a public figure was a public figure. It didn't matter what standpoint one stood in the entertainment circle. Getting involved in this matter was truly a high risk. There was no need to do so. Luo Nan furrowed his brows. He saw that the discussion in the group was more or less the same as what he was thinking, so he didn't post any more opinions. The company that Moya worked at might have some idiots, but they still had basic qualities. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before the company deleted Shui Yuan's post. Of course, it would be better if Luo Nan deleted it himself. As a friend, Luo Nan sent a message to Bai Yu, asking her to remind her captain. After sending the message, Bai Yu instantly replied with a dumbstruck emoji. Then she didn't say anything else. She probably went to remind Captain to deal with the matter over there. In the end, this was just a small matter. Luo Nan didn't pay too much attention to it. He continued to eat his meal in silence. At the same time, he split off a strand of his mind to continue to verify the various details of the external nutrients in his body's digestive and circulatory systems. He was searching for the basis for his detailed thesis. Luo Nan. Mrs. Luo Shuqing spoke once more from the seat of honor. Luo Nan immediately raised his head. Generally speaking, when his aunt called him by his full name, it meant that she was either in a bad mood or there really was something going on. His aunt had just received a round of phone calls. Her brows were still furrowed. You've been home these past few days. Won't you be delaying proper business? Mrs. Luo Shuqing's tone was quite calm. Proper business? The foundation you're talking about. Ah, it won't be delaying. Due to the recent rise in social authority of his entire family, the fact that Luo Nan was no longer a normal student, a normal person, could no longer be hidden from these close relatives of his small family. Luckily, Luo Nan's aunt's family had already passed the period of reaction to his current identity during these few days of seclusion. At least on the surface. Extraordinary ability user, gifted sensing master, specially hired expert of the Star Alliance Committee, member of the SCA's High Authority Group. These titles were all information that educated people of the present generation could understand. It was fine as long as they were equivalent to experts who enjoyed high-level allowances. As for the youngest extraordinary, the one-way tour guide who warped space and time, the card master who was a soul hunter, the human-shaped killing machine with global positioning. There was no need to waste time explaining these things that even the members of the inner world couldn't accept. At the same time, Luo Nan felt that it was very necessary to give his family some relatively normal information. The Luo Nan and his friends' foundation was among the normal ones. It was enough as long as his family had a bit of vigilance. They wouldn't be easily taken advantage of and bullied by the enemy. The true security system still needed the Xia City branch. Most importantly, Luo Nan himself had to seriously arrange it. As for the government's security measures of authority, it was nothing more than a formality. With these considerations in mind, Luo Nan was happy to use his duck-like voice to say a few more words. The foundation is still in the preparatory stage. We just held a thank you ceremony yesterday. The funds aren't a problem, but the personnel aren't in place yet. This was the speech Luo Nan had prepared for the outside world. It was just as effective when he used it on his family. It wasn't that he was intentionally hiding it. It was just that knowing this was enough for 99% of the people in this world. As expected, Mrs. Luo Shuqing didn't ask any further. She said, "Then are you still going to Gear's laboratory today?" "Ah. If there's nothing else, I'll still make a trip there. The facilities there are more complete." Although the most cutting-edge research that Luo Nan was currently undertaking couldn't be coordinated with and assisted by the facilities in Gear's underground laboratory on the North Bank, there were still some experiments that could be arranged there. And it was a bit more convenient than home. Having said this, Luo Nan cautiously asked, "Is there something you need?" Mrs. Luo Shuqing nodded. "Moya just called. Their recording isn't going too smoothly. They might not be able to finish in the morning, so they need to ask Rui Wen for leave. I just gave the school a call." "Huh?" Mo Peng, who was engrossed in eating his congee, suddenly raised his head. "Ask for leave. You approve?" Mrs. Luo Shuqing raised her wrist to look at her watch. She said unhappily, "Eat your food. You're already up late. If you keep dawdling, you don't want to go to school, right?" Mo Peng had a face full of grief and indignation. He turned his head to look at Luo Nan, hoping to obtain a bit of sympathy. A bit of consolation would be fine, but Luo Nan acted as if he didn't see it. Luckily, as an elder, Luo Nan felt that the atmosphere was a bit delicate when these words were spoken. He swallowed his reprimand and was silent for 2 seconds before speaking. Acumen College has been affected by the aberration infection. They're currently combing through their files. They're probably preparing for a rainy day. They're doing research on the children of vagrant families and the like. Luo Nan was startled. Rui Wen isn't a vagrant. I know. But the procedures for her show that she is. So she needs to go through a few additional procedures and do an additional registration. That's discrimination. Luo Nan hadn't done anything yet when Mo Peng slammed the table. But soon, he buried his face into his rice bowl under his mother's stern gaze. Luo Nan also furrowed his brows. It appeared that this was another form of census. The household registration system was strict, and the thinking was relatively conservative in the region of Xia City. Doing these things conformed with the government's consistent logic. In fact, it was beneficial for the vast majority of people. But looking at it from another angle, there were many explanations. Whether it's discrimination or not, let's discuss the matter as it is before there are clear signs of it. Don't mess around. I looked at the registration form they sent over. The requirements for the procedures are quite strict, especially the procedures after returning to the city. They're quite strict. Mrs. Luo Shuqing sent Luo Nan a link to fill out the form. I've handled all of Rui Wen's procedures, but now that I think about it, there are a lot of things that were done through your relationship. There are some twists and turns here that other people can't handle. Since you won't be going far away for a few days, you should take care of these things. Hick. Okay. Luo Nan's feelings were a bit subtle. He had never been a young master who didn't do any chores. But his aunt had never used this sort of tone to arrange a task for him before. She had never arranged a task of this nature. Plus, she didn't arrange complicated tasks and tests like she did in the past. She was worried that the child would run into a wall outside. She didn't take the trouble to teach him the details step by step. The current situation seemed to confirm that Luo Nan must, or at least must, possess the ability to handle this task. Yes, it was just like the legendary workplace, the arrangement a boss made for his employees. Luo Nan suddenly discovered that in Mrs. Luo Shuqing's heart, this nephew of hers clearly had a change in status in the family. Especially when compared to the person next to him. What are you dilly-dallying for? Do you want me to ask for a leave of absence for your teacher? Mo Peng stomped his feet and walked away. Luo Nan would normally just bury his head in eating at this time. This was basically the case in the past. But today, his aunt still had a belly full of words to say, and it was still related to Rui Wen. This school year is about to end. You've already taken a leave of absence, so I won't say much. But I need to say a few words to Rui Wen. Luo Nan raised his head. What's up with Rui Wen? The final exams are only a few days away. I checked Rui Wen's class results. It's terrible. She practically scored full marks on the final exams, but she would be persuaded to repeat a year. Huh. On one hand, there's a problem with her studies. On the other hand, she's been skipping class far too often. Especially in the past month or so. Luo Nan subconsciously avoided his aunt's gaze. Only he, her older brother, knew the best why Rui Wen was skipping class. The young girl spent the vast majority of her time wandering within the misty maze, searching for suitable planar processing materials for Luo Nan. Only Rui Wen's special ability allowed her to come and go freely within the boundless maze. In comparison, Luo Nan's detection activities in the tree-hole space could only be considered as statistics on a macroscopic level. If he wanted to do it in detail, on one hand, he would consume too much computing power. On the other hand, he would be too close to the danger zone of the Sunwell Extreme Prison. It would be very easy for him to create another incident like the daydream nightmare. It was impossible for him to explain such a thing to his aunt, so he could only pretend to be an ostrich. Fortunately, Madame Luo Shuqing was also mentally prepared for her nephew's half-hearted approach, so she did not probe further. She only said, "I know that you have your own circle, and what you do are those so-called big things that are beyond common sense. I can't interfere in this aspect. No matter what, society is a big classroom. You'll more or less make some progress if you've been in it for a long time. You've made a lot of progress, I admit. The question is, where is Rui Wen?" Chapter 1109. What should he do about Rui Wen? Luo Nan flipped through Rui Wen's transcripts, the teacher evaluations, and a series of materials that included psychological research and judgment. The teaching work of Acumen College was quite excellent. The relevant materials and evaluations were quite solid and reliable. And the more reliable they were, the clearer the problems highlighted above became. Taciturn, unsociable, erratic, often absent-minded, excessively cold and heartless. In the eyes of these teachers, Rui Wen was undoubtedly a problematic young girl. She was a poor student who would find it hard to complete her studies normally. The only good thing about her was that she wouldn't cause trouble for others. But this way, the problems on the psychological level would become more and more serious. Oh, the problems definitely exist. But they might not be to the extent described above. Luo Nan thought for a bit and then he gave his aunt some peace of mind. Rui Wen is still a bit alienated from the school environment. The teachers are only looking at her appearance. They don't know Rui Wen's actual situation. But we have a plan in our hearts. Mrs. Luo Shuqing shot him a glance. You have a plan? Of course. You see, Rui Wen is a very special person. Even if you include all of her experiences in the underground fighting arena, it would still only be a trifling 3 years of time. A normally developing child, at the age of 3, wouldn't even be able to speak clearly. Rui Wen's current reserved and silent appearance is already quite amazing. Of course, this should have a lot to do with her missing memories. Luo Nan had seriously considered Rui Wen's situation before. He was relatively optimistic. Her current problems are largely due to her previous amnesia. Her effective memories exist for far too little time. It's so little that she doesn't even have enough time to form a complete personality. But how old is she right now? 12 or 13? Maybe even 8 or 9. There's still a lot of time in the future. As long as we give her a complete, warm family, if 1 year isn't enough, then 5 years. If 5 years isn't enough, then 10 years. Sooner or later, everything will be enriched. Mrs. Luo Shuqing stared at him. You're quite confident. Luo Nan spread his hands. In the end, Rui Wen was different from other people. Even if she scored a 0 in every subject, she would certainly become an influential figure in this world in the foreseeable future. That's right. Just based on Rui Wen's talent and strength, Luo Nan had already marked out her lower limit. As for her upper limit, Rui Wen was still unable to see it clearly. In short, she was absolutely not bad. The problem now was how to explain it to his aunt. His aunt certainly had a bit of mental preparation right now, but Luo Nan couldn't rashly say that those kids whose grades surpassed Rui Wen were nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs in the eyes of this little girl. They wouldn't be able to catch up even if they rode a spaceship in the future. Such a statement was too stupid. Luo Nan could only adopt a delaying tactic. He chuckled and flattered, I have confidence in our family's environment. Just like me, a naturally awkward fellow. Isn't it pretty good now? I can't believe you still know. Of course I know. In Rui Wen's current situation, one is time, and the other is communication. We can only take our time. As for communication, it'll be better if we have a few friends of the same age or companions in the circle. In our circle, Rui Wen is the group's pet. Everyone loves her very much. She doesn't usually speak much at home, mainly because the age gap is too big. There's a generation gap. These kinds of words were obviously asking for a beating. Mrs. Luo Shuqing smacked Luo Nan, but she wasn't really angry. She turned her head and consoled herself. Recently, Mo Ye has brought her in and out of the recording studio. She seems to have gotten to know quite a few people. When I asked her when we got home, a few names popped out of her mouth. A few of them seemed to be young girls of the same age. But when I asked her to invite a few new friends over to our house as guests, she didn't follow up. Only now did Luo Nan know why his aunt was actually happy to see Rui Wen go to the recording studio. He laughed. "Aunt, you can't be too hasty in your actions. Why is it like a blind date? Rui Wen needs at least a decade or two to get married. You've been training outside, but your mouth is getting more and more oily." Mrs. Luo Shuqing still wanted to give Luo Nan another slap, but she didn't do it in the end. "Actually, I know that you and Rui Wen are both capable people. Capable people can eat no matter what. But in the end, the circle in which you two play around with your abilities is far too far away. Just like your father, mother, and grandfather. If they really could make a name for themselves in the wilderness, it would be fine if they didn't see anyone for a year or two, or even 8 to 10 years. But in the end, they came back in such a sorry state, and then left in such a hurry." Mrs. Luo Shuqing suddenly froze when she spoke to this point. She soon forced a laugh. There's no need to talk about these things right now. You're much stronger than your grandfather and father. At least they don't have the ability to ascend to the heavens like you do." Bah! Luo Nan didn't say anything this time, but he still got smacked in the head. He had an innocent expression on his face, but he already understood in his heart that his aunt's uneasiness originated from her lack of familiarity with the inner world. She didn't understand Luo Nan and Rui Wen's positions in the circle. Of course, if she really did understand, she would only be more worried. Luo Nan could only play dumb. He absolutely couldn't continue the conversation. "Don't worry. I'll take care of Rui Wen's matter today. I looked at the process just now. At most, I just need to make a trip to the orphanage, the civil affairs department, and the school. Speaking of which, Wei Wu and that little Ji who just came over from the orphanage are quite close to Rui Wen. You saw it all yesterday. I feel that Rui Wen looks at the two of them like she looks at the crow that often circles outside our window." Luo Nan was actually speechless. Luo Nan left the house early, bearing the pressure from his aunt. Okay, it was impossible for him to just run over to the administrative window to do the procedures. After all, he was a boss now. Okay, he was completely unfamiliar with the relevant procedures. Plus, he was still a minor. He wouldn't be able to do anything even if he went. Actually, he was just a second in command. Before he left the house, he had already passed the requirements for completing the procedures to bamboo pole. Yuan used to do this sort of thing, but she was currently in a state of closed-door training. It wasn't good to disturb her, so Bamboo Pole, the newly recruited high-ranking employee, could temporarily perform the duties of a secretary. Luo Nan didn't really want to be a hands-off shopkeeper. He just didn't want to mess around blindly. Right now, he and Bamboo Pole did a more detailed division of labor. I just asked. This procedure requires the personal signature and authentication of the person in charge of the orphanage who originally handled the adoption procedures. Boss, you're fast. Go get a copy from Dean Wan. I'm not that fast. In short, I'll be fast. I'll prepare some other things on my side. How about we meet up later? Okay, I'll get in touch later. Luo Nan arranged a time and place with Bamboo Pole, and then he strolled leisurely toward the Orchid Town's orphanage in the faraway Forest Wall district. Don't look at the one-way tour guide rumbling in the inner world right now. Luo Nan knew that he wasn't a genius like Rui Wen. A large amount of energy would inevitably be consumed in order to realize mid to long distance teleportation. It would also cause a large commotion. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, it was just that it wasn't necessary in his daily life. especially in the domain of Xia City, where President Ouyang's psychic wave network covered the entire city. In a certain sense, this was the extension of his extraordinary domain. President Ouyang probably wouldn't mind if Luo Nan were to teleport here, but the pressure on the psychic wave network would be too great. Not to mention that he would be alarmed 3 times a day. He was afraid that the personnel on duty would become numb to it. If something really did happen later, he might have to reenact the stupid show of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Luo Nan only had one option left if he didn't borrow the centipede, public transport, or any other traditional means of transportation at this time. Run. At first, Luo Nan's walking speed was about the same as a normal young man's. Once he left the community and reached the streets, his speed grew faster and faster. This speed wasn't just simply running. In fact, in the eyes of other passers-by, Luo Nan was clearly a student, yet he was strolling leisurely. He was a young man with nothing to do. At least, this was how Luo Nan appeared in their eyes. But once their attention was diverted, they would form a blind spot. They would never see this idle young man again. Luo Nan would never appear in their field of vision a second time. Luo Nan moved within the blind spot of people's attention. He borrowed the buildings, the trees on the street, and other obstacles to avoid the surveillance cameras that were practically everywhere in the modern city. He gradually accelerated until he displayed a speed that exceeded the imagination of normal people. This was the city-fast stealth technique that Red Fox had imparted to him. Right now, Luo Nan might not be able to use it as skillfully and freely as Red Fox. But through his incomparable perceptual ability, he could display a nearly prophetic judgment ability in such a complex environment. He could determine the limited number of points he needed to step on next, even though he was separated by a street block. From the edge of the building that was several hundred meters tall to the center of the street that was surging with people. Perhaps this included the fire escape passageway of some office building. Due to the limitations of the surveillance system, there were only a few dozen points that could be used in a street that was several hundred meters long. And because of the movement of the stream of people, these points were still rapidly changing. Even with Luo Nan's current ability, he needed to go all out to speed along this special private highway. From his physical strength to his calculation power, he needed to mobilize and operate them all. He couldn't afford the slightest mistake. From Luo Nan's perspective, there was no more effective method of morning training than this. He urged his body and brain to move with all his might, slowly melting away his original limits. He formed a more detailed communication with the magnetic optical mica. Through a perspective that didn't belong to humans, he observed and analyzed these changes. He researched and even experimented with more possibilities for development. Luo Nan was even able to feel the control lines of the magnetic optical mica slicing up the structure of his body and soul. There was also a certain subtle magnetization effect. This made every second different from the last. Perhaps everyone was like this in essence, but people like Luo Nan, who possessed a distinct trend of optimization, were few and far in between. With this speed, I should be able to reach the orphanage in approximately 40 minutes. But after I reach the Western District, I'll switch to the 100-knot bug. It will actually be faster. Luo Nan calmly evaluated and chose his route. Right now, he was gliding from the middle section of an office building to an unmanned platform a few dozen meters away. And at this time, Bamboo Pole made a call. Let me add another piece of information. There are some procedures that require Rui Wen to personally verify. Fortunately, she doesn't need to personally be present. But some real-time communication is still necessary. She's with Emoya. I'm going to see if their recording is finished. Luo Nan landed safely. He took the opportunity to do a roll to eliminate the force of impact and reduce his speed to a normal level. He entered the building from the platform. He sat on the railing of the fire escape stairs and slid down like a slide. During this time, he made a call to Emoya. What's the situation on your side? She casually hasn't returned home for 10 days to half a month. What's the situation with her making a punitive expedition? It's not like I skipped home to participate in a music festival. What's the big deal with asking? After the brother and sister stabbed each other in the back, they both understood that the focal point of the issue was Rue-1. So Mo-ya sent Luo Nan a video. "What the hell are you doing?" The content of the video was a short few seconds. It was actually Clara, the little temptress with the constitution to attract disasters. She pulled Rue-1 along to face a mirror and teach her the wave action. That's right. It was the action that especially manifested flexibility, coordination, and of course, the beauty of a woman's body. Luo Nan swore that he had only watched it no more than 5 times. He only turned his head to reply after he distinguished that Clara's electric eyes were fundamentally different from Rue-1's ice-cold gaze. "Didn't you guys go to record? Did you guys record in the dance studio?" "Pretty right. For the sake of correcting Rue-1's gaze, we've been recording from the wee hours of the morning until now." Indeed. Luo Nan should be proud. Had he spontaneously grasped the crux of the problem? Actually, he came to a realization after Mo-ya's reminder. With Rue-1's wooden and taciturn nature, her gaze actually wouldn't be that aggressive. There was even a hidden attraction to the opposite sex hidden behind the aggressive gaze. Even if it was displayed in coordination with the wave action, this was clearly the gaze that had been packaged and adjusted. As a conservative parent, this was the time to yell, "He's young, so he shouldn't learn well." But Luo Nan wasn't that kind of person. In fact, he turned his hand and sent this video to his group of friends. Then he asked Mo-ya, "Anything else?" The howling of wolves in the group of friends was transmitted over at nearly the same time as Mo-ya's next video. The video still showed Rue-1 learning to dance. Only this time, the entire BHD crew was on the stage. The 4 of them formed a group and stepped to the beat of the soundtrack. They danced explosively. Although it was explosively, it didn't reveal any legs or breasts. At most, it revealed a snow-white waist. But they were able to achieve coordination and synchronization. It was crisp and efficient. It was truly pleasing to the eye. "How's it?" "Amazing." Luo Nan really admired her. Rue-1 lightly stepped to the beat and played the guitar. This was already the pinnacle of her external performance that Luo Nan could imagine. Luo Nan didn't even dare to think of this before he saw it with his own eyes. "It's like that, right?" "Something like that." "Does it feel out of place?" "Nope. It's pretty good." Luo Nan wasn't just being polite. Rue-1's dance was secondary. Her body's flexibility and coordination was something that the 3 girls of BHD were professional idols. Even if they were multiplied by 10, they still wouldn't be able to compare. There really wasn't any difficulty in coordinating this sort of simple singing and dancing. What made Luo Nan, who was familiar with Rue-1's temperament, feel particularly amazed was her expressive ability. Even though Rue-1's face was ice, cold and not a single fluctuation could be seen, the expression in her eyes as she danced was the same as when she was practicing her dance in front of the mirror. Her eyes revealed a sharp offensive nature. It was very easy to associate her fiery and explosive dance with an allure of danger. Is she putting on a show? Luo Nan didn't just send these words to Mo-ya. He also sent them to his group of friends. Only after sending them did Luo Nan feel that this question was a bit out of the blue. But there were quite a few smart people in this world, and there were many by Luo Nan's side. Bamboo Pole, who had just been blasted out of the group, replied in an instant. He even took a screenshot of a moment where Rue-1's chin was slightly raised. She looked down from high above with a gaze that seemed to be examining and disdainful. She's super expressive. An expert must have helped her adjust this gaze. Who taught her? Through Bamboo Pole's explanation, Luo Nan confirmed a step further that his conjecture wasn't wrong. In essence, Rue-1 was indeed a highly dangerous and aloof existence. But this danger and loftiness were hidden. They absolutely wouldn't be exposed so easily. So that gaze was a performance that had undergone an effective adjustment. Acting was a relatively high-level method of expression. If his aunt saw this scene, she should be quite relieved. Yep, Mo-ya might even be beaten to death. After a while, Mo-ya also replied, "See. Ruoe Wen definitely has talent. Luo Nan sighed from the bottom of his heart, I really didn't expect. Hold on. I nearly let you get away with it. You said you stayed up all night for the recording, but in the end you guys did this? It really is a BHD recording. But Ruoe Wen doesn't have a deep understanding of this sort of dynamic music. Wouldn't it be great to let them interact a bit? Like hell I'd believe you. Though he said this, Luo Nan admitted that this was indeed a very good start. Mrs. Luo Shuqing and Mo Ya, this mother and daughter pair, really did have a level in the area of educating and inspiring children. Even though they didn't really get along with each other. I'll send this to my aunt. Let her have some fun. Don't. I'm sending it. Luo Nan, you're dead for sure. Hee hee. Luo Nan turned his head to look at the second video after teasing her for a bit. Yep, it was pure admiration. But when he saw the tallest and most fit figure within the group of 4, his thoughts were evoked. He recalled the matter he had heard this morning. Hey, since you guys are together, do you know if the tweet about Shui Yuan has been deleted? Oh, that. It's already been taken care of. This matter is very complicated. Don't get involved. Since you said it's complicated, it seems like it really is. Of course. Speaking of which, in my impression, Shui Yuan should be the most worry-free. Why did you suddenly think of posting that? It's none of our business, but it's none of our business. Luo Nan was just about to ask a step further when someone tagged him in his friend group on the Hexa. Pay attention. Is there someone secretly taking a picture of that shadow in the mirror? Chapter 11:10. In other words, the same object was viewed by many people. There would always be some differences in perspective. Ruoe Wen's 2 videos sparked heated discussion in the friend group. The more people watched, the more details were dug out. The person who spoke was the professional bodyguard, Mr. Gouda. There was a large age gap between this retired soldier and the others in the group. He normally didn't speak much, but he was very sensitive to his profession. Later, he uploaded a video that had been intelligently edited. There was an eye-catching red circle circling the corner of the large mirror in the dance studio. There was a figure that wasn't all that clear, but it was real. The figure was hidden behind the half-open door. Clearly, Mo Ya had inadvertently recorded this fellow through the reflection of the mirror when she was filming this video. Luo Nan frowned. He turned around and sent the edited video to Mo Ya. Can you recognize who this fellow is? Is he from your company? Mo Ya replied a few seconds later, I can't really tell. Let me check. There should be surveillance cameras in the hallway. There really are some people in the company who send out internal videos in exchange for some cigarettes and alcohol money. Oh, it's also possible that he's an Seeing fan. If he can enter the company, then he really does have remarkable abilities. An Seeing fan. According to Luo Nan's limited knowledge, a small group like BHD didn't have any Seeing fans in the entertainment industry. But when they did, they were often extreme characters. Of course, they wouldn't commit murder or arson. If they truly had strong evil intentions, Ruoe Wen would be the first to find out. Don't be careless. Let me know when you get the results. Luo Nan began to speed up once more. I'll go help Ruoe Wen with the procedures. What procedures? Luo Nan gave a simple explanation. Mo Ya chuckled on the other side, but she didn't say much. She casually sent Luo Nan a live video from the recording studio. From the video, it could be seen that whether it was Ruoe Wen or the BHD trio, their working conditions were quite good. Not a trace of exhaustion could be seen from their sleepless nights. Perhaps it was the dance exchange from before that made them all excited. Let it continue like this. Luo Nan restarted his morning exercise mode. Things went as he expected. After passing through the congested section of the city center, he rode the 100-knot bug and arrived at the Forest Wall district in less than half an hour. He saw the Lawn Town Welfare Institute hidden within the original mall. Luo Nan entered the entrance hall personally designed and built by Dean Wan and the children. He noticed that there were many unfamiliar faces in the rather mottled historical reception room to the side. Dean Wan glanced over from within the reception room. Luo Nan didn't say anything. He just pointed upstairs as a sign. He knew that the people in the living room all had serious expressions on their faces, but it was not a bad atmosphere of collecting debts, so there was no need to disturb them. The only thing that stood out was that Luo Nan saw. Di Weiwu was sitting upright in the room. Luo Nan could tell that he was having a hard time. Luo Nan had a few guesses when he saw this situation and thought of Bamboo Pole's report from this morning. He never thought that this wave of guests would be quite tactful. They took the initiative to say their farewells when they saw Luo Nan come over. Dean Wan didn't bother with pleasantries. He got up to see the guests out. Di Weiwu was the first to run out. He was so excited that he couldn't stop himself. He crashed into Luo Nan's arms. "Brother Nan, you must have skipped class." Luo, you are. You are. Di Weiwu wailed, "There are 2 more months. My life is going to be distorted. Take a look at Jie. I think he's a good role model. In fact, the vast majority of people yearn for that kind of educational opportunity. It's the vast majority of parents." Di Weiwu's unreasonable pestering amused quite a few people, including the departing guests. Dean Wan just nodded to Luo Nan, "You came a bit earlier than I expected. I just came to see if you signed it. If you're done, I'll just take it and leave. The hard copy is ready. But it looks like it needs to be verified online. Wait a moment. Okay. You do what you need to do. I'll give this kid Weiwu a lesson first." There was nothing wrong with this conversation, but the guests who were about to leave were a bit more sensitive. Someone asked, "Online signature. Do you need to go through the vagrant adoption procedures?" A relatively young woman stopped and revealed a smile to Luo Nan, "Classmate. You came by yourself to get the procedures. You're so amazing. Are you also a vagrant?" It had been a long time since someone had spoken to Luo Nan like this. The corners of his eyes twitched subconsciously. Yes, it must be because of his voice-changing period. Also, his chin had begun to grow a bit of a beard over the past few days. His face still looked too tender. Luo Nan had a good temper. He just laughed and shook his head, "I'm not." Then, he led Di Weiwu upstairs. The little fellow was pulled away, but he still turned his head to back up the conversation. "Brother Nan isn't a vagrant, but he takes good care of me." The woman didn't stop him. She just turned her head to speak to Dean Wan. "Mr. Dean, we aren't forcing the hospital to do anything. We just hope that everyone can assist us and do some thoughtful work. We want a child like Weiwu to get online and find his family. He won't have any regrets in life. We will also pay great attention to the privacy of the relevant personnel." "What's online?" Luo Nan had some doubts in his mind. He asked Di Weiwu, but he was afraid that the little fellow wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. He simply threw this question into his friend group. The friend group has almost become a work group these days. Bamboo Pole's ridicule was completely unconvincing in front of the nutritional products he forwarded. But this didn't stop him from doing proper business. He was still the first one to provide effective information. "I was just about to report to you, boss. Right now, the organization level of Xia City's protest group is clearly on the rise. And there's a phenomenon of connecting with other cities. Internet Explorer is one of the most important symbols." This thing sounds familiar. Octopus popped his head out and interrupted, "I think I've seen it somewhere before." If you've seen it before, then it means that you've been to the Vagrant Exchange quite a bit. And you've messed with their internal network quite a bit. Meow. Octopus's voice was a bit messed up. Luo Nan also frowned. He had seriously researched the Vagrant Exchange a while ago. The question bank. He really didn't see any relevant information. What's this website used for? It's probably equivalent to a platform for finding people. Bamboo Pole began to send screenshots to the group. In the beginning, Online Wanderer was a social networking function module placed on the Vagrant Exchange's intranet. It was probably a reaction against the mainstream secrecy. But the response wasn't that great. After all, very few people would take unnecessary actions after accepting the Vagrant Exchange's unique private credit system. I don't know when it started, but someone borrowed the function of this module to develop a fill-in-the-blank game. It's probably about uploading basic information about a person and their family. Then it was continuously expanded and perfected to form a relatively complete relationship and social network. Of course, this was done at the cost of exposing other people's privacy. Then, perhaps because there were too many blanks in the fill-in-the-blanks game, the more people filled in the blanks, the more difficult the game became. It seemed to be proof that a lot of unknown missing people had appeared among the vagrants who returned to the city, which aroused the interest and suspicion of many people. Gradually, the case started to spread. Recently, someone in whose city has launched an activity. They encourage all vagrants to upload information related to themselves and their relatives. This is to form a relatively complete network of relationships, so as to fully reveal the blanks in the network. Clearly, this wind has blown to Xia City. Octopus chuckled, the legendary, missing immigrants and vanishing relocation. Luo Nan didn't know if Octopus remembered the conversation on the platform yesterday. Luo Nan looked at Di Weiwu and decided to let this kid go for now. After Luo Nan let Di Weiwu go, he replied in the group and asked, "Whose city?" Bamboo Pole responded, "Xia City should be fine. There are some cities inland. Don't doubt that I'm talking about whose city. They did some bad things in the past, and now they're rebounding quite fiercely. From what I remember, it seems like that branch president is quite close to headquarters." As for what his name was, Luo Nan really couldn't think of it for the time being. Gao Wenfu. Red Fox suddenly popped up. It was a simple reply, but it sounded like he was chewing on ice shards. "Is he your enemy?" Papercut followed closely and asked in passing. "I don't have the qualifications to become enemies with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it to Xia City alive." Red Fox spoke calmly. "However, this person is undoubtedly the leader of whose city. He has thousands upon thousands of disciples, and disciples. His influence radiates far and wide. He might have clashed with him that time." "I understand." Luo Nan thought for a moment. He didn't have a deep impression of this person. Red Fox must have participated in the summit that day, but he didn't sit in the core circle. Octopus suddenly had a strange thought, they all have the surname Gao. Celestial Master Gao and Brother Gauda, are you related to them? They're out of my league. Gauda's answer was very simple. Dean Wan had already sent off the guests at this time. He came up to help Luo Nan complete the signing and authentication procedures. Though it was complicated, it didn't take much time. Luo Nan took the opportunity to ask about the origins of the guests. Sure enough, they came from the vagrant camp in the Trigate district. They even specially hired a very famous social activist. She was the woman who had asked the question. It looks like this demonstration won't stop anytime soon. They can't be going door to door to check the vagrants who have entered the adoption process, right? Dean Wan shook his head. Right now, they hope to establish contact with the vagrants on this channel through various welfare homes. It can only be said to be a request. Their attitude is okay. It's also possible that the minor vagrant children aren't the main focus of this activity. Is it because the majority of the missing are adults? Dean Wan nodded silently. Luo Nan let out a breath and didn't say anything more. Though the current vagrant demonstration and other events were equivalent to adding chaos to Luo Nan's global census from a certain perspective, Luo Nan didn't care about this. He wasn't the instigator of the chaos. People who were worried about the chaos often doubted their ability to uncover the truth. Luo Nan was very confident in himself. "Thank you, Dean Wan. I'm going to continue with the procedures." "Wait a moment." "Huh?" Dean Wan stopped Luo Nan. He took out a ball-shaped object from his pocket and handed it over. This little toy was a bit like the incense basket used in ancient times for incense. It was perfectly round and its surface was a hollow structure. It was extremely detailed, but there weren't many patterns that could be discerned. The veined patterns were relatively abstract. Luo Nan couldn't see the material. He held it in his hand and pinched it. It was quite hard, but the luster of its surface structure made it seem like it would break easily. What's this? Chapter 11:11. Dean Wan thought for a moment. Let's call it the seismograph for now. Huh. Thanks to you, I was able to make a trip to the 70-format laboratory. I more or less gained something. This was the truth. However, Luo Nan rarely talked about this information with Dean Wan. He just had a tacit understanding in his heart. Suddenly speaking of this aroused Luo Nan's curiosity. I've never asked, Dean. Have you found the source of the divine revelation? I haven't. Dean Wan never denied that his extraordinary power and knowledge came from the divine revelation he experienced in the wilderness. He had been diligently seeking these past few years, hoping to find the true source of all this. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed this time. Dean Wan himself was quite calm. Order doesn't equal smoothness. Perhaps it's just a confirmation of our current ignorance. Dean Wan's words were sometimes even more awkward than Luo Nan's. However, Luo Nan had a conjecture regarding his understanding of the God's revelation. The core of the grassroots organization of the order of creation that Dean Wan had created had far too many similarities with the school of creation that Luo Nan had come into contact with at the relay station. If the worn-out spaceship outside of the Sunwell prison was added to the traces of information projected to Earth's spacetime, Luo Nan couldn't help but suspect that Dean Wan's divine revelation overlapped with the research direction and target of his own family to a considerable degree. However, he couldn't divulge this conjectural information for the time being. It was very likely that Dean Wan had already sensed it. Yes, this was tacit understanding. Dean Wan explained the design of the seismograph. My experience in the laboratory gave me some inspiration and stimulation. You know, it's unavoidable to feel that the space-time environment we are in right now isn't particularly stable. Luo Nan went, Then he laughed. Dean Wan continued, after returning to Xia City, that feeling lingered around me. I don't know if it's real or just my imagination, so I made this thing, hoping to verify it. It's mainly based on what I've seen and heard in the laboratory, and with reference to the environment on both sides, I made a sensor device. Of course, I'm still lacking a layer. There are many parameters that I can't fill in. If possible, you can try to complete it. Though Dean Wan's explanation was not clear and direct, Luo Nan still understood. This should be a part of Dean Wan's experience after coming into close contact with the Misty Labyrinth. Dean Wan used the creation technique he was most proficient in to form a tangible object. Without a doubt, this was a good opportunity to observe and understand the Misty Labyrinth from a different angle. Of course, Luo Nan accepted. I'll go back and study it. I'll go back and do some research. The two of them did not exchange any pleasantries. Both of them were pure researchers, and most of their communication was through the products under their hands. Luo Nan tossed the seismograph up and down. The reason why it was called this was because Dean Wan was quite certain of the relationship between the Misty Labyrinth and the Earth's local spacetime. At this moment, Luo Nan involuntarily thought back to the series of research that Peony and the others had done in Spring City some time ago. There was also the poetic metaphor of the wheel that ran over time and space. Alright, I have to admit that there are many capable people in this world. By the time Luo Nan and Bamboo Pole met up in front of the SCA office building in Xia City, it was already around 11 o'clock in the morning. By this time, they could go to the government department to go through the normal procedures. They could find a restaurant outside to get ready, eat their fill, and come back in the afternoon. Of course, Luo Nan didn't need to do this. By the time he arrived, his temporary secretary, Bamboo Pole, had already straightened out the procedures and people on this side. What Luo Nan needed to do wasn't just simple procedures. He needed to make further adjustments. Boss, you should have some sense of privilege. Bamboo Pole, who had just finished a round in the building, naturally pushed the problem of his busy morning to his boss, who had provided him with a generous reward. You should know that your entire family is a member of the SCA's high-level authority group. When it comes to the protection of identity information, there is a corresponding clause. In fact, when you were asked to go through the procedures this time, you could totally slap the relevant personnel in the face and question him, why was our household registration information leaked? Bamboo Pole had ample talent for acting. He really did have the appearance of a hedonistic young master. Luo Nan laughed when he saw this. It was the SCA official who accompanied Bamboo Pole and waited for Luo Nan's arrival. His expression was hard to describe. Luo Nan also knew this person. He was deputy chief Hu of the Xia City branch of the SCA. Last year, Rui Wen's identity was verified by him. This time, he was the one who came forward to receive her. His intentions were very obvious. In the end, he was a colleague of his uncle. He seemed to be someone who knew He Yuan. Luo Nan spoke softly. If you want to slap me. I have an SCA employee at home, but he's the only one who would slap me. Plus, this matter was mainly because too much information was leaked to the school. Rui Wen's identity as a vagrant was a cover. She never thought of hiding it from others. Bamboo Pole nodded. But I still suggest that after this matter, the measures to protect identity information must be strengthened. Perhaps this little trick will be completely useless against a true adversary, but at the very least, it won't be a waste of time for inexplicable reasons. You're right. Chief Hu, I'll have to trouble you from now on. No trouble at all. I'm ashamed to say this, but our service really isn't up to standard. Deputy Chief Hu's attitude was even more humble than the last time they met. He led the two inside. Luo Nan didn't actually need to personally handle the specific procedures. Luo Nan had already given the SCA and the government system of Xia City a gargantuan amount of face by sending over Dean Wan's personal verification. Under Bamboo Pole's mediation, what Luo Nan needed to do right now was basically to negotiate and question. Of course, neither Luo Nan nor Bamboo Pole paid much attention to it. They changed the subject on the way. I made a little discovery just now. It's related to our cute beautiful housekeeper, Miss Shui Yuan. Didn't you mention something about the game network? I just went up to do a bit of research. She's up there. So she's a vagrant. Luo Nan immediately had a guess. Mo Ye had said something in the morning about being confused when one is involved. Bamboo Pole nodded. She's not just a vagrant. She's quite a senior in the game network. What I'm trying to say is that she was already registered on this website before it became famous. She probably just left the circle. Is she a member of the exchange? That's not it. I also did a bit of research. Miss Shui Yuan is a relatively rare city migrant. She followed her adoptive parents from Hu City to Xia City when she was 8 years old. It's been 10 years since then. She had been adopted into this adoptive family for no more than 3 months before that. It was also not long after Hu City released the Vagrant Relocation Act. She was one of the first vagrant descendants to be adopted. Due to the fact that the procedures weren't complete back then and the fact that she was moving across the city, her vagrant identity was never revealed until now. It sounds quite complicated. It's just that it was complicated back then. Bamboo Pole spread his hands. Actually, the reason I'm telling you this is because if I can dig up her background, then others can too. Actually, I just casually looked up some information when I was drinking coffee in Chief Hu's room. I didn't even use any technical methods. Huh. See. Shui Yuan's vagrant identity isn't exposed. Once exposed, the trouble will definitely escalate. Bamboo Pole's judgment was still ringing in Luo Nan's ears when something happened over at BHD. And the funny thing was that Luo Nan didn't find out about this from Mo Ye or Rui Wen. Instead, he found out about this from a hot topic on social media. A short video spread across many popular social media platforms in Xia City. It quickly became popular and eventually activated Bamboo Pole's network sniffing and capturing mechanism, allowing the video to enter his database. Soon, the two people in charge of the Sia City branch of the SCA were left dumbstruck by the sudden explosion of the video. The place where the video was taken should be the office building where Ming Tang Culture was located, and the person filming it was most likely a paparazzi reporter. The reason they said so was because they had no idea where they got the news from. They blocked the elevator entrance and accurately captured the BHD team. From the video, it could be seen that the paparazzi were clearly heading for Shui Yuan. Their mouths were full of words like vagrant, protest, mutant infection, quarantine policy, and other words that had nothing to do with the entertainment industry. The questions they asked weren't up to par. They just picked out the most exciting things to say. Look at the trio from BHD, especially Shui Yuan's reaction. What kind of reaction could she have? The trio from BHD, who had just made some progress from being an amateur, had never seen such a spectacle before. Their beautiful faces turned pale for a time. They retreated and were completely blocked inside the elevator. But in the next moment, the people at the very front of the crowded elevator entrance all lost their balance for some unknown reason. Some fell forward, some fell backward, and a large number of people fell. And on top of the bodies that fell all over the floor was Rui Wen. It was without a doubt Rui Wen. It was unknown when she arrived at the front. She was the first one to break through the crowd from the elevator. She crossed the chaotic area on the ground and led the trio from BHD, as well as Mo Ye and the others, to quickly break through the encirclement. No, it wasn't accurate to say that they broke through the encirclement. They simply swaggered off. What's going on? Luo Nan was a bit stupefied. No wonder the internet was exploding. When celebrities from all walks of life were interviewed, all sorts of dark histories emerged one after another. But most of the time, there were filters, inappropriate statements, covert insults, and so on. It was truly unheard of for someone to overturn more than 10 people at once and swagger off like that. If it was a bodyguard, then it would have been fine to rely on brute force to commit murder. But the one who made a move in that instant was a little girl who looked to be a few years younger than the trio from BHD. What's going on? Luo Nan found Mo Ye's number and called her. He actually couldn't get through twice in a row. When he finally got through with great difficulty, he was showered with these words. It's the ones you've seen on the internet. They're cool, right? Mo Ye was clearly still in a state of excitement. If these words get passed to the reporters, you'll be an instigator. It's not that serious. We were just defending ourselves. Luo Nan learned more information from Mo Ye's mouth. The reporters that had surged over were fine. They looked like a surging crowd with an extraordinary aura. But in reality, there were only 2 or 3 reporters with interview permits, and they were all from unrated tabloids. If this was the case, then the agent who had been following them from the side was completely capable of controlling the situation. But Luo Nan never expected that these paparazzi reporters had actually been summoned by some anti-fans. That's right. A good portion of the people who had tried to rush into the elevator were of this status. Especially when there was an extremist mixed in. An unknown liquid mixed with paint was found on his body. There were also blades and the like. This solved one of Luo Nan's doubts. No wonder Rui Wen took the initiative to make a move. It was said that this person was originally a fanatical fan of Shui Yuan, but at the same time, he was also an extreme anti-vagrant member. Shui Yuan's registration on Youlian clearly pricked his paranoid and fragile nerves. He gathered with other anti-fans and summoned paparazzi to set up this trap. It couldn't be said that he was completely brainless, but this method of doing things was really hard to evaluate. Luo Nan didn't feel like wasting even a second on this kind of person. He was more concerned about the aftermath of this matter. There were far too many people involved in this matter. Rui Wen, Mo Ye, and the trio from BHD all appeared on camera in this matter. And from the perspective of the people in the entertainment circle, this sort of sharp rise in negative popularity was absolutely not a good thing. Luo Nan and Bamboo Pole glanced at each other. Bamboo Pole had just walked through Luo Nan's online information database. Bamboo Pole turned to reveal a serious expression: a dam of 1,000 miles can collapse because of an ant's nest. Without a good beginning, the entire matter is destined to be utterly terrible. Look, this is the trouble caused by you people letting the high-level privileges go unused. Luo Nan shook his head and directly got up. You guys talk. I'm going to take a few calls. This short video began to ferment in Luo Nan's circle of friends and relatives in the time it took to make a few phone calls. Many people, including Luo Nan's aunt and uncle, called to inquire about the situation. There were even more calls from Moya. There was no need for a professional like Bamboo Pole to make a move in the group of friends. Information regarding this matter came from various social media and various other online platforms. All of them were gathered in an endless stream. The focus of the matter had clearly shifted. The attention of the masses of netizens didn't have the patience to investigate the complicated background. Who was Shui Yuan from the BHD group? Why did they dare to do such a thing? Why did they do such a thing? It would be hard to get any results without waiting for a few days. The true focus came directly from the video. Who was that young woman who overthrew the reporter and swaggered off? And then a certain busybody took a screenshot from the chaotic video. The popularity of this matter began to rise sharply. The main character of the screenshot was Rui Wen. The focus was on her actions, but the core was her eyes. That cold and even empty gaze of hers when she overthrew the reporter in an instant. Even someone like Luo Nan, who knew her inside out, felt his heart tremble when he saw it. Of course, the essence of everything was still her appearance. Although Rui Wen wasn't the stunning type, her skin and bones were excellent. Moreover, she possessed a body and soul structure that exceeded that of a normal person's level of life. She was truly a flawless beauty without any blind spots. She absolutely could withstand the nitpicking and comparison of those bootlickers on the internet. All of this was quickly streamed on the internet this morning with the dance practice video of Rui Wen and the BHD group. It caused a further commotion. Chapter 11-12. Is this a publicity stunt? The amount of information about the demon-eyed woman on the internet had been fluctuating, but it maintained a certain level of popularity and did not stop for a few days. As a result, Zhang Yingying, who had been concentrating on the godson raising technique, couldn't help but wonder and sigh when she handed in her homework. Don't you have a limit? This isn't normal. The general public would only find it abnormal if there's a restriction, right? Zhang Yingying was quick-witted and immediately grasped the key point. You're letting this go. It's just tacitly allowing some people to add fuel to the fire. Understood. Protect that long-legged snow garden and divert the public's attention. No wonder Mingtang Culture's statement was so vague. That makes sense. Otherwise, you guys might as well just leave the SCA's high-clearance group, it's useless. Speaking of which, you guys are throwing Rui Wen out to attract firepower. It's alright. The comments online about Rui Wen are relatively neutral. We've also asked for her opinion. Rui Wen doesn't really care about such things. Instead, she's been practicing with Shui Yuan and the others for a longer period of time. In reality, this wasn't a big deal. The storms of the secular world couldn't affect them at all. At least, a considerable number of people thought so, including Zhang Yingying. The problem was, it wasn't just the secular world. The news had also caused ripples in the inner world. It had only been a little over half a year since the big incident of Miss 2 out of 1,000. She could have become a world-class tycoon in a single leap, but in the end, she had fallen into the so-called trap of opportunity of an extraordinary. This incident was still fresh in many people's minds. Needless to say, Luo Nan was one of the main characters of this incident. He was currently setting off a tsunami of impact in the world. The combination of legend and gossip was so perfect that it was hard not to attract people's attention. You have to pay attention. I heard from the boss that the Starry Sky Club has already received several rounds of inquiries regarding Rui Wen. They're using the same old trick of 2 out of 1,000. They're probing and provoking. Yes, I know. They want to bind Raven to the value of the deep blue world, as a key to open the door. Well, actually, I'm a key too. Luo Nan began grading Zhang Yingying's homework. He wasn't interested in this matter. In fact, he received the news earlier than Zhang Yingying. After all, he was a member of the Starry Sky Club in name. Key? Ah, I understand. Zhang Yingying sighed. What an annoying label. Aha, it's all over your head. Right now, there are many people, and it's not just those from the deep blue world, who are trying to stick labels on Luo Nan. This isn't completely intentional. They are facing an object that they are temporarily unable to understand, and they are unwilling to pay the cost of time. Sticking labels and making definitions is the most worry-saving. The problem is that there are people taking advantage of this trend to add fuel to the fire. This is quite troublesome. What was even more troublesome was that these messy labels, if they had a unified prefix or suffix, they would eventually be locked to something like keys. It would be useless to tear them off later. For example, the key to crack the new plane. The key to breaking the source of the mutated infection. It could even be the key to unraveling the secrets of the deep blue world. The key to unlocking the limits of human evolution. Of course, it was also entirely possible that it was the key to opening Pandora's box, the key to breaking the current order of human society, and so on. In short, they were all keys. Luo Nan had been in a special position ever since the Pacific Ocean Summit. He was the crux of everything, but he was also the key to everything. At least this was the impression he gave others. Even though he intentionally slowed down the progress of the global census to buy a certain amount of buffer time, he was unable to stop the flow of people's thoughts. Speaking of which, is it really that important to distinguish the source of the mutated infection and the extraordinary power? Is it that important? Zhang Yingying left a message on the private chat interface. That depends on whether or not someone is concealing something. How complicated. I thought we never needed to think about this aspect. Zhang Yingying's sorrow was not unique to her. At this stage, the spirit of the summit conference had already spread widely in the inner world circles. Even though the possibility of everyone suffering from the mutated infection was extremely small after the awakening of their extraordinary powers, people still needed to pay attention to this important development at all times. Whether it was the source of radiation or the trend line, these concepts seemed understandable, but they were complex and unfathomable. They all announced that the world they lived in was undergoing rapid changes. They needed to work hard to adapt. However, a considerable portion of people still followed the trend and advanced. If we don't do well, we'll become the enemy of the entire world. Think on the bright side. The entire world might be convinced. There are far too many inconceivable things on Earth. There's no need to talk about it in the universe. Let's talk about what's happening right now. Who would have thought that you, Sister Yingying, would walk the path of a breeder and never return? Protruding. I'm praising you. Luo Nan's attitude was very sincere. This was because the homework Zhang Yingying had handed in, or more accurately, the dumb sand breeding diary, was getting better and better. She was already quite clear about the special aggregation mode of dumb sand, which seemed to be an accumulation of sand. She even began to suspect that this aggregation mode was a reflection of some sort of external structural state. That's right. Dumb sand was highly related to the magneto-optical mica. Though the magneto-optical mica was rapidly growing in the past few days, and the disturbances it brought to dumb sand were a bit too frequent, Zhang Yingying was able to capture this abnormality under the premise that she was severely lacking in information. She was able to form an accurate judgment. This was quite amazing. And in today's homework, Zhang Yingying had even begun to consider searching for other order fulcrums for dumb sand to serve as backup. She wanted to volunteer herself. In fact, this was very much in line with the idea of the fantasy schools, artificial fantasy breeds, to transfer control, the kind that went straight to the core. I have to say, Sister Yingying, you really have an extraordinary acuity in this field. Just say it's talent. Yes, it is indeed a talent. In the domain of configuration and superconfiguration, talent was also very important. According to Luo Nan's understanding of the situation, there were some people who were very good at mathematical logic and derivations. There were some people who were able to use super strong insight to point out the specific structure and space-time distribution in an instant. Luo Nan could barely be considered as the second type. This was under the premise that he possessed a powerful mental sensing ability, and he had the endless space-time configuration fragments within the misty labyrinth as a reference. To be honest, it was the selection and analysis of a large amount of valid data, and it was forcefully fed. Zhang Yingying, on the other hand, did not have a strong foundation and conditions like him. Under such circumstances, she was able to repeatedly grasp the key parts of the dumb sand's growth process, had her own ideas, and effectively form a positive interaction with the dumb sand while still lacking a lot of knowledge. Other than talent, there was no other explanation. Chapter 11-13. Forgive Luo Nan for being biased. From his perspective, White Rainbow was an innate ability that had yet to push Zhang Yingying to B rank. There was no way it could be mentioned in the same breath as her outstanding talent in configuration and superconfiguration. Did Her Majesty Empress Wu make an error in judgment? Similar thoughts surged into his mind once more. Luo Nan did not use the fact that Earth lacked configuration before he came into being, especially the theory of superconfiguration. From his perspective, this shouldn't be a problem for Her Majesty Empress Wu. Forget it. I don't think. Luo Nan had already graded Zhang Yingying's homework and discussed a few specific details. In the end, he asked, "Do you want me to open up an experimental area for you in the Bloodwill Rings fortress?" Huh. I see that you've already begun to consider the problem of a simple configuration systematic aggregation, but you don't dare to perform overly extreme experiments on dumb sand. Then you'll need to find another suitable target. Zhang Yingying used exclamation marks to express her emotions. Are you going to use the people of the branch as lab rats? Are you going to bring the Bloodwill Rings fortress to life? Just from this question alone, it could be seen that Zhang Yingying had a plan in mind. She had captured Luo Nan's train of thought. It shouldn't be too difficult to use the Bloodwill Ring as a basic unit to create a simple consciousness system. After all, the structure of the Bloodwill Ring is simple, and the investment in soul strength is limited. There won't be any problems. Luo Nan was certain in his mind. Right now, the fortress has more of a creation component. The flavor of fantasy is too light, and it's a relatively shallow application. It's a bit of a waste of resources. Also, it's easier to filter out people like you, Sister Yingying, who possess the gift of configuration and superconfiguration. The chances of this are small, but there's no way to go wrong with this. Do what you want. Zhang Yingying decisively gave up on her plans to investigate further. In this domain, Luo Nan was the authority of authority. Yes, wrong. In this domain, he was the only authority on Earth. No one could compare to him. She would just do whatever Luo Nan said. Then I'll start making preparations. Luo Yanwei, tell President Ouyang, Gao Tianshi, and the others. They've been very tight these past few days. I don't want them to treat me as a spy because of a miscommunication. There were quite a few ability users in Xia City, especially those with fleshly bodies. It was better to use the psychic wave network to construct the Ring of Bloodwill. Recently, the branch had been researching the connection between the psychic wave network and the Ring of Bloodwill. Luo Nan responded with a grunt, then he asked curiously, President Ouyang, why are you so nervous? You don't know. Mo La, who came over to visit his family, has been going in and out of the psychic wave network. He seems to be doing some tests. With such a top-notch assassin beside you, no one would have a good time, right? Can't we just chase her away? The problem is that President Ouyang also wants to take this opportunity to improve the infrastructure of the psychic wave network and upgrade it. That's up to you. Speaking of which, you really don't take it seriously. Luo Nan replied with a puzzled emoji. Don't think that just because you brought out the name of a global census, others will look at the whole world like you. That Mo La and many others might think that you are trying to divert the attention. Now, if you stop at any place for too long, someone might suspect that there's something wrong with that place. There's already a rumor outside. You're talking about the new plane, right? I don't care what other people think. Besides, their thoughts can't be wrong. Sigma degree, retract. Retract. Retract the information. Didn't you see the research results of Professor Wu Zunliang and Peony's team? Huh. I can't say that their research has touched upon the essence, but I rather approve of the general trends and phenomena. Pure research is really great. If the matters of the world could be dissected and solved in this way, then it would be super simple and super blissful. Bullshit. Don't be so sour. For the sake of doing research, this sister's hair is falling one by one. Zhang Yingying directly used voice to complain. Reclamation seems like something that happened in my previous life. The so-called reclamation was playing the 10 days in the wilderness game. For a heavy player like Zhang Yingying, this was quite hurtful. Luo Nan said in passing, I'm really going to reclaim the wilderness tomorrow. When I come back, everyone can go to Frost River Reality and relax. Isn't the expansion pack coming out soon? Huh? Zhang Yingying quickly came to a realization. You're going to the wilderness? For what? To sweep a grave. In the blink of an eye, it was close to the weekend. According to Luo Nan's plan, he was preparing to go to his mother's burial ground in the wilderness on his solar birthday, the day of his mother's death. This was something he had been brooding over ever since he became sensible. He really didn't have the ability or the conditions before, but now he absolutely couldn't miss this opportunity. According to Luo Nan's plan, his schedule would quickly become packed after sweeping the grave. Whether it was the global census or some other work, they would all take up a large amount of his time. Before this, he felt that he should communicate with Rui Wen. Okay, it was his aunt who pulled him by the ear. She wanted him to care about the mental health of his little sister, who was at the heart of the struggle. It was obvious that Rui Wen had been excessively cold and calm these past few days. This made his aunt more and more unable to grasp the little girl's thoughts. Frankly speaking, Luo Nan didn't really understand. So, after grading Zhang Yingying's homework, Luo Nan turned around and went to Rui Wen's room, the small room at the end of the corridor. Rui Wen, I'm coming in. Everyone's sensory abilities were extraordinary. This greeting was just out of courtesy. Luo Nan directly pushed open the door and entered as he spoke. Though it was already night, the lights in the room weren't turned on. Rui Wen was used to the silence of the dark. Normally, when she was at home, she would just stare blankly in the corner of her room. Right now, this sort of time was becoming less and less frequent. This was because the majority of her energy was placed on exploring the misty maze. Rui Wen's gaze fell upon Luo Nan's body the moment he entered the room. It was like a corner of the starry sky under the serene curtain of the sky, seemingly dark yet bright. After a brief pause, a faint blue light replaced the room. It was the light of the virtual work area. Today I've discovered something. Huh? Luo Nan discovered very awkwardly that it would be very difficult for him and Rui Wen to have a heart-to-heart talk to continue. The reason was none other than that Rui Wen wouldn't pour her heart out to him. Comparatively speaking, Ink and Jerry were both a bit stronger than him. In his memories, Rui Wen's long sentences, especially those that were idle chatter and lacked a purpose, often appeared in her conversations with these two inhumans. On Luo Nan's side, her recent focus was completely placed on the exploration of the usable domain and plane fragments within the misty maze. What was displayed at the exit just now, as well as what was displayed in the virtual work area, were the reports of the exploration results. Chapter 11:14. I didn't come here to ask about the progress. Luo Nan really wanted to say this to Rui Wen, but doing so would be too deliberate. It would make the following exchanges more difficult. He could only grin. What did you discover? Fragments that might be suitable. Rui Wen was probably the person in this world who understood Luo Nan's pseudoplane plan the best. She didn't care about the practicality and feasibility of this plan. She just kept her head down in the mist maze, searching for the most suitable large-scale plane or domain fragment for Luo Nan to transform. In fact, the information about the existence of large-scale fragments within the mist maze was provided by Rui Wen in the first place. The mist maze was a fragmented world. Even the concept of a world wasn't accurate enough. It simply didn't possess the structure to bear material substance. According to Luo Nan's conjectures, it was extremely likely that it was the remnant of one or even several previous worlds that had been completely crushed by a terrifying power. Only the lowest level of law fragments were left behind. These were originally untouchable. At the very least, it was impossible for Luo Nan to come into contact with them with his perceptual abilities back then. The reason why an environment like the mist maze was formed was most likely because it was connected to the space and time of Earth. It was infected by the space and time here. Perhaps it was also coupled with the powerful radiation of Sun Will Hell to complete the outer shell seal. Only then was there the scene of haze and sandstorm that could appear before Luo Nan and others. Luo Nan had already caught a glimpse of these possibilities after cultivating the magnetite mica jellyfish and borrowing its special clairvoyance mode. However, he still needed to utilize his own visualization and configuration construction abilities of the large coordinate system to move within the mist maze. He needed to open a path in the mountains and build a bridge in the rivers. This kind of mode was bound to have great limitations. Or perhaps it could be said, the mist maze only displayed Luo Nan's appearance as an existence. When he tried to construct a fulcrum for his existence, he had already formed a permanent change in the mist maze. This was a bit similar to the predicament other ability users faced when facing the storm of the Abyss region. Only Rui Wen, with her inconceivable talent of body and soul fusion, could transform into a similar form of existence. She could travel relatively freely in the misty maze, and she could even capture the relatively complete spacetime signals within, resonating with the overlapping and distorted waves. If the compatibility was high, it was even possible to teleport to the other side. Generally speaking, fragments that were able to emit and retain a relatively complete signal in a highly complex and chaotic region were all fragments of a larger scale. Rui Wen had followed this train of thought to explore the depths of the mist labyrinth, and the results were basically in line with her guesses. Luo Nan would occasionally be able to capture this sort of signal within the tree-hole space that he had constructed himself. But he blushed with shame. The precision of his probing was far inferior to Rui Wen's natural talent. Therefore, the main force of exploration at this stage could only be Rui Wen. Frankly speaking, the process of Rui Wen's perception, resonance, matching, and even teleportation was hard for Luo Nan to understand with his current level of understanding. He only knew that there were certainly risks involved. Rui Wen would suffer minor injuries from time to time during the exploration process. It seemed that the degree of matching and resonance wasn't enough, and the forceful teleportation was the result. For this reason, Luo Nan gave orders to Rui Wen, telling her to avoid impatience. At the same time, Luo Nan treasured the results of Rui Wen's exploration very much. Every time, he would thoroughly research and completely deny the feasibility of the modifications. Only then would he stop. Today's sigh. Let's take a look first. Rui Wen gradually changed her method of communication due to her relatively poor ability to express herself. She no longer reported verbally. Instead, she used the notes she had prepared beforehand. It was very clear that Rui Wen had absorbed Luo Nan's note-taking methods in recent times. The presence of graphics far exceeded that of words within the contents of the notes. It was just that Rui Wen's note-taking abilities were built upon Luo Nan's solid foundation in sketching. Rui Wen's notes looked much more simple and unadorned. All right. If Luo Nan didn't have a relatively complete understanding of the terrain of the misty labyrinth, it really wouldn't have been an easy matter to understand. Luo Nan scratched his head. He temporarily pushed aside the idea of how to communicate with Rui Wen. He did his best to translate the information that Rui Wen was trying to reveal from the concise graphics. You've made progress in drawing. Luo Nan first gave a word of praise. This wasn't a false statement. Ruewen really had begun to feel a bit like drawing. At the very least, there was a set pattern. It was just that the structural model of the work area was a bit too simple. Also, why did the virtual work area lag one after another? This caused the graphics that Ruewen drew to look a bit awkward. Hold on. This was an animation. Luo Nan captured the continuous changes in the graphics during the lag process. He was actually a bit pleasantly surprised for a time. It was rare for Ruewen to ponder over some other ideas. Her train of thought was clearly becoming more and more lively. But then he was puzzled. It must be said that the drawing software that Ruewen used did indeed have an intelligent animation function. It could automatically complete an animation trajectory after a limited set of settings. But it wasn't professional enough. It was fine if it was used for a normal business demonstration, but it didn't seem to fit well with this sort of schematic diagram. But no matter how unsuitable it was, it shouldn't have lagged, right? Could it be that the enterprise-level computing chip he bought for Ruewen was a defective product? Luo Nan was now an engineer with professional insight after going through Worker Zhai's long-term tutoring. His first thought was to cut out from the page and prepare to look at the bottom level. Huh? Luo Nan blinked. All of this wasn't important. The page that appeared wasn't the simple desktop that he expected. Instead, it was unexpectedly garish. It was clearly the UI of some social media. To be more specific, it was a discussion area under a certain topic. The topic was also marked with special words and colors, the demon-eyed woman. That's right. It was densely packed with discussions related to the demon-eyed woman, which was to say, Ruewen. Looking at the automatic refresh rate, it was extremely enthusiastic. This was really a bit unexpected. Actually, 3 or 4 days had passed. Whether it was the crisis of Shui Yuan's identity and standpoint, or the demon-eyed woman incident, the popularity of these topics was steadily declining on the surface. It was just that in some small circles, disputes would erupt due to various stances or inexplicable differences, causing the local popularity to remain high. It was very clear that Luo Nan was looking at such a page. This sort of circle wasn't rare in cyberspace. But in any case, he needed to take the initiative to search for it, right? Truly, truly unexpected. So it turned out that Ruewen paid a lot of attention to this sort of matter. Luo Nan looked at Ruewen, and Ruewen looked back at Luo Nan. Speaking of which, Luo Nan was already a bit worried that the little girl would fly into a rage out of humiliation. But when their eyes met, all he saw was pure and serene. On the contrary, Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. Originally, this was a very good entry point, but he forcefully pushed it back. He was completely subconsciously covering up for Ruewen. He cut back to the interface. It seems like I processed too much data. What the hell? Cover up my ass. But the matter was just this absurd. Luo Nan was clearly making things up, but what he said just so happened to hit the crux of the problem. While he was messing around with the drawing software, he saw that the back end of the drawing software was actually processing hundreds and thousands of drawings. Perhaps even more drawing materials. This wasn't a professional animation software. With such an enormous amount of data, coupled with Ruewen's high requirements, it was naturally impossible to handle. The lag was born from this. Why are you drawing so much? Luo Nan understood as soon as the question left his mouth. It was certainly because Ruewen wanted to ensure the detailed effects of this animation. He could see that Ruewen really attached great importance to this new discovery. I'll download a professional software for you later. Hick. Instead of messing around with the software, it's better to go check it out on the spot. Ruewen nodded, then she stood up. No. Not now. There's no rush. Luo Nan finally recovered. He knew that if he were to return to the topic of the Misty Maze and continue the conversation, then the preset, brother and sister night talk, would basically fall apart. He took the initiative to press the pause button. Let's study this matter in detail tomorrow. Tomorrow was Friday. Was he going to let Ruewen skip class? Small matter. Small matter. Luo Nan decisively bypassed this obstacle. He truly brought out the words he had already figured out. Oh Rui-wen, have you been running back and forth these past 2 days? Have you been too tired? Rui-wen shook her head and responded softly, I haven't. Then that's good. Luo Nan wanted to speak the following words, but he forcibly choked them off, making it hard for him to continue. This was because he suddenly came to a realization. He had just seen a new situation from Rui-wen that he had never seen before. He had never even thought of this new situation. He had prepared a plan for a heart-to-heart conversation, but now it was all for naught. At this sensitive time, the words spoken were like spilled water. It would be hard to take them back. Before this, Luo Nan really didn't think that Rui-wen had any psychological problems. At least, he didn't think that his aunt would be worried about her. But right now, he really couldn't grasp it. He wanted to play it safe. At the very least, he wanted to discuss it with his aunt, who had rich experience in educating others. He also wanted to observe her a bit more. And so, Luo Nan could only start strong and finish weak. He said a few words of nonsense about striking a balance between work and rest and left in a hurry. Luo Nan was a bit at a loss after leaving the door. Going to find his aunt right now seemed to be a bit of an overreaction. Then, he simply gave Moya a call. But the one who answered the phone was the manager of the Mountain Creek Band, the chubby sister Meng. Mr. Luo? Moya and the others are performing. They transferred their signal to me. Is there something you need? Oh, I forgot. It's nothing. It's nothing. Only now did Luo Nan remember that Moya wasn't home tonight. She had a performance assignment. Luo Nan hung up the phone and stared blankly for a moment. He hesitated for a moment, but he focused his mental senses on Rui-wen. From his perspective, this wasn't a big deal. He didn't do this in the past because he wanted to protect his privacy. He didn't want to make things awkward for Rui-wen with her own outstanding perceptual abilities. But now, through the special clairvoyance mode of the magnetic photon mica jellyfish, he shouldn't be able to sense it, right? Rui-wen shouldn't care even if she did sense it. Well, she wouldn't. Luo Nan cast his gaze over after completing the relevant mental preparations. Rui-wen was still sitting in the corner of the pitch-black room. She maintained the same posture as before, but her eyes were closed. The virtual work area was off. That's right. She didn't need to display it, so of course there was no need to keep it on. The problem was that Luo Nan had no way of knowing whether or not Rui-wen was resting with her eyes closed, or whether or not she was surfing the web through her retina projection. Luo Nan stared at her for a long time. He wasn't sure whether or not he had been discovered by Rui-wen. In any case, he hadn't discovered anything. This didn't give him any comfort. Instead, he felt his head swell. The problem was complicated. Chapter 11:15. Ahaha, so you're losing your head out of fear right now? Moya, who hadn't returned for an entire night, called Luo Nan the next morning. She laughed quite unrestrainedly after listening to Luo Nan's account. Luo Nan frowned. How could it be that serious? You're acting like this. You're like parents who have muddled along for over a decade. When their child is in his rebellious phase, or even later, they suddenly discover that their child is completely different from the growth model they expected. They feel that the product they nurtured for so many years is basically going to be scrapped. It's impossible to reforge it. Then they panic and despair, not knowing what to do. Isn't this the feeling? Luo Nan continued to deny. It's not that exaggerated. You're using this as an analogy. It seems like you've experienced it before. It's fine to just observe. Observe the mental processes of Mr. Mo Haihang and Mrs. Luo Shuqing a few years ago. You can more or less learn a few things. Of course, I've also gotten involved in this mess myself. Huh? Luo Nan's mind went blank. You. That's right. Did you forget? I'm the one who provided you with the Dream Fund. I funded a 10-year-old kid to do a drug experiment. Even though the results are pretty good and the return on investment is super high, I was quite anxious when I recovered from my second Chinibu. Hehe, so your funding was the choice of a Chinibu? Could it not be? In order to take care of your so-called dream, there was an extremely high possibility of harvesting a younger brother who overdosed on drugs and died. Just thinking about it makes my hair stand on end, okay? As Moya spoke, she also sighed. From this point, I can understand your current feelings. Thank you, little brother. You've worked hard. Moya soon laughed. How should I put it? I still feel like you're overreacting. Even though you may be the one with the most power in the family, you don't need to burden yourself with Rue Wen's matters. You need to know that the loss of her memories before she entered the family wasn't caused by you. Even though she was brought into the family by you, you're just an older brother in terms of family ethics. You're not a parent. But Aunt, she certainly wants you to take responsibility, right? You might really be the person that Rue Wen wants to be close to the most. Even 10 sentences from others can't compare to a single sentence from you. But you still have to look beyond the surface to see the essence. Did my mother want you to be the head of the household? Come on, they still have a long way to go before they retire, and they're the kind of people who worry a lot. How stupid can they be to let you be the leader of this family? There seemed to be someone laughing beside Moya. It should be a woman. But Luo Nan wasn't in the mood to pay attention to these things. He just pulled the corner of his mouth. Then what does Aunt mean? She only wants you to look inward and arrange a mission for you at home so that you will have a sense of belonging as a family member, instead of being a so-called world-class expert who goes to the upper class for no good reason and considers the life and death of mankind every day and night. Moya concluded, this is a scheme, a family scheme. You're right. Luo Nan pondered for a moment and felt that it made some sense. But he soon came back to his senses. But aren't you off topic? What you've said to me, I admit it's reasonable, but Rue Wen, what's the situation? What should I do? This. Moya was clearly stumped. When all is said and done, you don't know. I only have you as my experience in inexplicable success. I'm going to take this out to deal with Rue Wen. Let's not talk about anything else. Can you be at ease? Moya's reply was bold and confident, but she soon admitted, her reaction really is quite unexpected. Luo Nan sighed. Moya seemed to be talking to someone beside her. A short period of time passed before she spoke again. Don't think too much right now. People like you will go overboard when you think about things. But it's not necessary right now. It's best to observe first. Of course, you can't observe her in a monotonous and simple comfort zone. You need to push her into a relatively complex environment. My mom is more proactive than you in this regard. We don't blindly believe in Rue Wen at this time. We believe in the ability of this family to protect her. Luo Nan went, oh. Besides, there's still you. Even if there are some problems or accidents, you'll definitely be able to fish her out in time, right? Definitely. Luo Nan still had this sort of confidence. Then it's settled. You don't need to worry about Rue Wen suffering any psychological trauma or the like. A person's character is often warped and expanded under layers upon layers of obstacles. In the end, it is molded. Some people are simply chiseled with knives and axes. From childhood to adulthood, from birth to death, they are all molded and changed. Isn't this an unavoidable process? The process of molding a character isn't a disaster. Even molding a freak isn't counted. Only by completely negating its existence from its roots. Ah. That's it. Luo Nan blinked his eyes. Even though it's great reasoning, it sounds pretty good. So please seriously consider whether or not Rue Wen wants to seize this opportunity to make her debut. Huh? It's nothing. What I'm saying is that you can first observe her situation in the school environment when she's not skipping class. Ha! Right now Luo Nan was sitting inside gear on the north bank. He was sitting in a leisure booth in the public activity area at the edge of the sandbar waterway. He was speechless for a time. How could he explain the fact that Rui Wen had blatantly skipped most of her morning classes and was already heading in this direction to meet up with him? Forget it. Luo Nan slapped Jerry's head, who had popped out from who knows where. He decided not to think about this sort of lousy matter this morning. He hung up the phone and drank the fruit juice on the table in 2 or 3 gulps. He asked for another cup for Rui Wen, preparing to pack it up and take it down to the underground laboratory. This little girl shouldn't like to be in front of people. Luo Nan was absent-minded for a moment. Was this shouldn't what he was thinking? No matter what, he shouldn't verify this matter for the time being. Brother. Nan. Someone suddenly greeted him. When he said, brother, he was clearly a bit restrained. This was mainly because he was in front of people. Luo Nan actually greeted Senior Tian in a very natural manner. The person who came was Tian Chi of Acumen College's Advanced Teaching Department. He was also Senior Tian Xi's cousin, and he was older than Luo Nan by 3 to 4 years. He called Luo Nan brother in his heart. After all, he was a child who had been beaten up by the reality of society. He just couldn't wipe his face off in front of people. However, Tian Chi's gaze followed the illumination lights and cast into the bottom of the lake. He saw the enormous devil ray swimming lazily in the deep waters, and his greeting became even more sincere. Brother Nan, it's been a while since I've seen you in the society. I heard you took a leave of absence from school. Yeah. I've been running around a bit more lately. Even when I come, I usually go to the laboratory. I understand. I understand. Tian Chi's gaze unconsciously glanced at the devil ray at the bottom of the lake. Actually, many people in the Mystic Arts Research Society knew that this dangerous mutant that had been tamed disappeared for a period of time last month. It only returned at the beginning of this month. There were even fewer people who knew that the main character of the video of the devil ray flying through the sky that had been wildly popular in Xia City at the beginning of last month was probably the devil ray at the bottom of the lake. As for the highly blurry figure in the video, forget it. He didn't dare to think about it. He didn't dare to think about it. Though he didn't dare to think about it too deeply, Tian Chi still unconsciously moved closer when he saw Luo Nan. It was good to say a few words. Luo Nan's polite attitude made his nervous state of mind ease a bit. Right when he wanted to chat a bit more, he saw Luo Nan wave his hand behind him. The fat-headed and big-eared Jerry had leaped out a bit earlier than Luo Nan. Tian Chi turned his head and saw Rui Wen appear at the entrance of the public activity area. She was wearing the standard summer dress of Acumen College. Jerry rushed directly to Rui Wen's feet. He wanted to move closer, but he was a bit afraid. He just circled around her feet. Rui Wen had to bend over to pick Jerry up and bring him over. It was quite eye-catching to see a middle and low-grade student appear here during class time. The lively muskrat that moved closer intensified this impression. However, Rui Wen's face was even more eye-catching. They could faintly hear someone exclaim in surprise over at the public activity area, "Hold on. This is the Demon Eye woman, right? Short hair, black eyes, fair skin, and a beautiful appearance. She looks like... especially that skin. She's from our school." The students of Acumen College possessed the most basic qualities. They suppressed their voices when they exclaimed in surprise. But there weren't many people here to begin with. The corner of the bar was relatively quiet, so the sounds of exclamations and whispers were particularly clear. Luo Nan and Rui Wen obviously heard them loud and clear. Luo Nan looked over there and saw that Rui Wen's jade porcelain-like face didn't fluctuate at all. She was completely unaware that she had become the center of everyone's gazes. Tian Chi also heard them. He knew of this fact earlier than the vast majority of the people here, even though he and Rui Wen had only met a few times. He grinned and took advantage of the fact that Rui Wen hadn't come over yet to come closer. He whispered, "There are quite a few people who are crazy about Rui Wen in the society. It seems like some people have already guessed it. I heard that OK has already gotten someone to inquire about Rui Wen's contact information." "OK? Oh, it's that vice president." Luo Nan's impression was that he seemed to be a rather pretentious young man. As for Rui Wen's identity being leaked, it wasn't strange. After all, this little girl was a frequent customer of the Mystic Arts Research Society. Her appearance and temperament were especially outstanding. It was very normal for her to leave an impression on others. Luo Nan smiled at Tian Qi. Rui Wen's here. Let's go do an experiment. We'll talk next time. Sure. You busy yourself. Tian Qi was already very content to be able to exchange a few words with Luo Nan. He saw Rui Wen walk over with Jerry in her arms. He stood up and helped her pull out a nearby chair before leaving. However, Rui Wen didn't have any intentions of sitting down. She just looked at Luo Nan. Luo Nan wanted to chat with her some more, but when he saw the little girl's calm and wooden expression, as well as the drinks that were already packed in his hand, he sighed in the end. Let's go. Luo Nan and Rui Wen didn't do any experiments in Gear's underground laboratory. Instead, they quickly jumped to the cloud world and entered the misty maze. They went to do the on-the-spot investigation they had agreed on last night. Of course, the on-the-spot investigation was impossible. The area that Rui Wen could currently reach was still out of Luo Nan's reach. Rui Wen clearly had her own considerations regarding this point. Within the tree-hole space that Luo Nan had created to carry material matter, Rui Wen brought up the offline mode drawing software. She referred to the previous records and cast her gaze into the area of the sandstorm outside. At the same time, some of the chaotic fragments that whistled through the air displayed a few special trajectories. They gradually took shape and formed into a scale. They were like thousands of ravines in the depths of the shattered wilderness. There was an underground river that meandered and flowed. Chapter 11:16. Wow! Rui Wen's move was very beautiful. Luo Nan knew that Rui Wen had used some sort of method to transfer the sketches stored in her drawing software into the mist maze. This allowed the fragments of her domain to possess activity for a short period of time, becoming the medium for her drawings. This was similar to Luo Nan's previous demonstration using water vapor, but the difficulty was far higher. First of all, a domain fragment was a domain fragment. No matter how fragmented it was, no matter how sealed it was, its essence was still the direct embodiment of a law. Its material structure was countless times more complex than the water vapor that Luo Nan controlled. Regardless of whether it was material energy or soul force interference, the effects of such a carrier would be greatly reduced. Luo Nan had opened up the space of the tree hole within the misty labyrinth from nothing. He was the clearest about the difficulty of this place. Secondly, Luo Nan didn't see Rui Wen operate this set of animations. She displayed the connections and rich details of the tens of thousands of drawings stored in the drawing software in an orderly manner. Yes, Luo Nan didn't see Rui Wen's manual operation when she demonstrated the animation. At the very least, he didn't see the follow-up operation at all. Rui Wen just gave him the initial power, and then all the changes naturally occurred and continued to evolve. It was as if Rui Wen had programmed the fragments of this boundless domain beforehand. As long as a switch was pressed, all the fragments would operate according to the preset rules. Something didn't seem right. Luo Nan faintly felt a bit awkward. He wanted to analyze it more seriously, but the content that Rui Wen displayed attracted his attention at this time. This seems to be, Luo Nan snapped his fingers, and the lens nebula suddenly expanded from a miniaturized state at the very center of the second level of the tree hole space. It was like a gradually magnified starry sky seen in a lens, revealing more and more details. It was useless to have too many details. Of course Luo Nan was able to see that Rui Wen's drawing had been simplified to a certain degree. He had scaled the lens nebula to a similar scale, making it a bit more intuitive. Luo Nan made a slight comparison and came to a preliminary conclusion. This radiation zone hasn't been monitored yet, and you're relying on the inner layer. You don't want to live anymore. He unconsciously raised his voice and glared at Rui Wen. You're already listening in, Raven replied. There's no result at all, okay? If you take another step forward, won't you run into the Sunwell Extreme Prison? Do you still want to live? It's still a long way off. Rui Wen's reply was even simpler. Luo Nan pressed her head. Is the concept of near and far appropriate here? Rui Wen remained silent. As long as Luo Nan had the time in the near future, he would certainly go to the tree hole space to conduct an eavesdrop. He would also make the relevant records. He would combine the boundless fragmented data with Rui Wen's search records to slowly trace the outline of the misty maze. He didn't dare to say that he had a complete grasp of it, but he had a general understanding of it. The core of the maze was, of course, the Sunwell Extreme Hell. It was a place where the two unimaginable forces of order and chaos locked together. It was both violent and balanced. Luo Nan didn't know how far the other side was from him. The concept of near and far wasn't suitable to be used here. All he could sense was the pull and radiation of this powerful existence. It was very likely that what he had been paying attention to all this time was just a projection. The main body was still countless light years away. But it was also possible that he would fall into the fatal gravitational sphere if he took another step into the misty labyrinth. It would be impossible for him to climb out. Luo Nan had consecutively created two world-class events, the light of the polar domain and the daytime nightmare, within half a year. He understood the terror of the Sunwell Extreme Hell better than anyone else. Therefore, he could only stay a respectful distance away. He even had to intentionally distinguish and avoid the eavesdropping. The remaining areas that could be eavesdropped and traced were the main parts of the lenticular nebula. Basically, they were the perceptible areas that had been contaminated by the local space-time rules of Earth. Luo Nan made a simple division of them. The first type was the radiation zone. It seemed that the two grand forces of the Sunwell Extreme Hell had collided in opposite directions within these areas. It was unknown how many years had passed since the collision, but the shockwaves were still tenaciously continuing without stopping. Of course, it was more likely that they were affected by the powerful and contradictory radiation of the Sunwell Extreme Hell, resulting in the continuous impact and collision. They also carried out a complex fusion. It was as if they were verifying the interlocking equilibrium of the Sunwell Extreme Hell, but they weren't completely successful. This was the main melody of the misty labyrinth. The other type was the safe zone. Luo Nan's Luo clan's sandwich domain, which bore the space of the tree hole, was located in the relatively quiet periphery. These areas were clearly affected by the local spacetime of Earth. They were the main forces that collided and formed the cloud world. Currently, they could be considered the underlying structure of the cloud world. Strictly speaking, the distribution of this structure didn't have the concept of up, down, and four directions. The division between the inside and the outside was very blurry. It was highly complex and highly distorted, going against the daily experience of humans. It wasn't even easy to describe. The lenticular nebula only displayed a distorted projection. In essence, it was still a database. A deeper analysis was needed. Luo Nan's daily eavesdropping on the misty labyrinth was like a passive radar. Although the amount of data he processed was large and there was a lot of noise, he was able to avoid making contact with the Sunwell Extreme Hell. He did the basic work bit by bit. It was solid and safe. He wasn't the only one who was safe. Rui Wen was safe as well. As long as he was effectively eavesdropping, the little girl should be able to come and go freely in the safe zone and even within the range of the eavesdropped on the radiation zone with her ability of body and soul merging. From Luo Nan's perspective, Rui Wen's reconnaissance shouldn't have been done with the mindset of taking risks and searching for treasures. Instead, she should have helped his eavesdropping to carry out verification. Actually, it was precisely Rui Wen that allowed Luo Nan to take many detours. She reduced a large amount of useless work. Luo Nan was able to quickly digest and absorb the results of his father's observations in the past month. If it wasn't for the requirements of the pseudo-plane, damn. In the end, it was still his problem. Luo Nan was vexed. He couldn't help but press a few more times on Rui Wen's head. Things weren't over yet. Rui Wen had run into the radiation zone without effective eavesdropping. Her nature could be called dangerous, but it didn't have much to do with the awkwardness from before. Luo Nan calmed his mind a bit. The animation of Rui Wen's demonstration flashed endlessly in his mind. It corresponded with the area within the lens nebula that he had just begun eavesdropping on not too long ago. It was a familiar yet unfamiliar area. He tossed aside the details that he couldn't delve into and just locked onto the skeleton depicted in Rui Wen's sketch. It was probably a few relatively large fragments of the domain or the fusion of fragments. These large masses of things were manifested on the lens nebula in the form of a fuzzy halo of stars. There were a few slightly bright stars scattered in the center. And under the cover of these stars was the final target that Rui Wen had pointed out. It was just that this final target seemed to be hidden a bit too deep within the current lens nebula. And the location wasn't quite right. Luo Nan suddenly had a guess. He aimed at the area that Rui Wen had displayed. He even wanted to use his hands to measure the star atlas. This wasn't necessary. The eavesdropping and mapping image of the area was the result of his and Rui Wen's hard work. The answer actually lingered in his mind. Using his eyes and his hands was nothing more than confirmation. Yes. Strictly speaking, the image of the radiation zone without effective eavesdropping on the lens nebula was different from the final image of Rui Wen's demonstration. And it wasn't the same as the one at the very front. Luo Nan felt that Rui Wen's drawing skills were immature at first. Her simplification wasn't appropriate enough, resulting in a distortion. But now, let me see those drawings. Rui Wen obviously wouldn't refuse. She immediately brought up the work area and displayed the tens of thousands of drawings in the background. Due to the large amount of data to be processed, the refresh process wasn't too smooth. Luo Nan couldn't care about this. He directly got to work and quickly flipped through the work area, flipping through these drawings from front to back. This could more or less be considered a manual broadcast of an animation. But the broadcast didn't take too long. Soon, the first half of the several thousand drawings arranged in order appeared. If the evolution process displayed by these several thousand drawings was described as a 10-second video, then the one Luo Nan locked onto would be in the region of half a second. Though it had undergone simplification, it highly corresponded with the structure of the star atlas displayed on the lens nebula. There was practically no difference. It seemed that this one was the present. Then, Luo Nan pursed his lips and turned his head to begin controlling the lens nebula. There was no doubt that the structural details of the mist labyrinth were constantly changing. One had to accept this in order to observe it accurately. One had to adapt to this. For this reason, even though the data that constituted the star atlas could be described as a sea of data, both Luo Nan and Luo Zhongheng did their best to preserve the crucial process data. They recorded the instantaneous appearance of every node of the mist labyrinth. Blurry was counted as well. Luo Nan was tracing back to the previous records. He slowly pushed the structure of the mist labyrinth displayed on the star atlas forward. Actually, he was completely capable of retrieving a single photograph. Even if the lens nebula was intrinsically distorted and unreal, the astronomical amount of data was placed there. It would consume quite a bit of mental effort to realize the dynamic changes. But Luo Nan felt that it was very necessary. Thus, after approximately 5 days or so, it was still the same cluster of stars that alternated between light and dark. However, the main skeleton that was constructed from the bright stars, after a slight adjustment of the angle and position, astonishingly formed a nearly perfect correspondence with Rui Wen's initial sketch. Luo Nan also confirmed a step further. This process of tracing back was simply the first half of Rui Wen's demonstration animation, played backwards. Alright. This is the past. Then, the ones that haven't been monitored yet, are they the future? Luo Nan stopped. His forehead and the back of his head were slightly sweating. One reason was because of the mental effort consumed. The other reason was because he suddenly discovered that his talent and strength towards Rui Wen, he never understood it from start to finish. Chapter 11:17. Luo Nan had sensed something during Rui Wen's demonstration just now. During the entire process, Rui Wen had only used her initial power from beginning to end. She had pushed the initial sketch, and then everything had operated according to the established procedure. There really hadn't been any other interference in the middle. Luo Nan's awkward feeling stemmed from this. He had misunderstood earlier. Rui Wen hadn't drawn the results of her own observations into images and then demonstrated them. She had merely wanted to display the scene that had just occurred for him to see. To be more precise, there had never been any results of observation. The star atlas formed from the monitoring data corresponded to the nodes of Rui Wen's sketch. The closest set of nodes had just reached the first 2020 of the star atlas. Nothing had happened yet. How could there be any observations? In other words, this was a set of foresight. It foretold the development and evolution of a portion of the radiation region of the mist labyrinth in the future. Luo Nan cast his gaze towards the lens nebula. He felt the astronomical amount of data corresponding to every instant within. He thought about the amount of computation required for the dissipation and convergence of every detail. He went silent for a time. Of course, this was just a guess. As for whether or not it was true, it was still faster to ask Rui Wen. Rui Wen, is this the result of your predictions? Rui Wen thought for a moment and answered, I see a bit. I see. Luo Nan didn't know how to respond for a time. Rui Wen rarely used rhetorical techniques when she spoke. She usually wouldn't say things like descriptions or comparisons. So, when she said she saw it, she really saw it? It would have been very hard for Luo Nan to think about this a month ago. But during this time, the inconceivable perceptual mode that came from the magnetic optical mica was gradually changing Luo Nan's observation and thought patterns. The appearance of this world was becoming more and more different from what it had always displayed over the past decade. Whether it was living things, inanimate objects, material objects, or the void. Everything revealed a different structure and connection under the bizarre perspective of the magnetic optical mica. Right now Luo Nan was doing his best to adjust and adapt. He hoped that this difference wouldn't turn into a tear. Looking at the normal world was already like this. What Luo Nan saw and felt when he observed the mist labyrinth was different from before. It was just that this place was far too chaotic and complex even under the special perspective of the magnetic optical mica. And the amount of data excavated had increased by an order of magnitude. Luo Nan needed to comb it a step further before he could hope to restore it to effective information. Since he was like this, who knew what this world was like in Rui Wen's eyes? Rui Wen was most likely unable to understand the complex train of thought within Luo Nan's mind. Since Luo Nan had asked her, she obviously had to answer to the best of her abilities. Right now, Luo Nan had already brought up the lens nebula. Rui Wen gestured at the more intuitive star atlas, there's one here, or maybe two. It's a bit dangerous right now. After a while, it'll be thrown out to this position. If it was someone else listening to Rui Wen's explanation, they would definitely be confused. Luo Nan immediately understood. You're saying that within this area, there are one or two large-scale domain fragments that will be affected by the collision of the ramming radiation zone. They will be thrown from a relatively deep location to a relatively safe area. They might be more suitable for remodeling. Rui Wen nodded. This was something that the radiation zone was capable of doing. Such a phenomenon seemed a little counterintuitive at first glance. The center of the contradiction or the storm should have a stronger impact, and the remaining debris should also be finer. But the problem was that the mist maze, which was a special environment caused by sun will hell, could not be simply regarded as the result of the collision and explosion. What was displayed in the broken structure was a mutual restriction, mutual influence, and mutual distortion mechanism. The next step forward was order. The next step after order was chaos. The present was only a temporary equilibrium. This sort of equilibrium mechanism formed a complex gravitational sphere. It was just like what commonly happened in the boundless universe, all things were destroyed and reconstructed, but they were no longer their original appearances. And this led to a direct result: the closer one got to the danger zone of the gravitational sphere, the more resources one could use. The chances of picking up scraps in the periphery were far, far too low. Luo Nan sighed and rubbed Rui Wen's scalp with force. So you know the danger. It can be used. Rui Wen didn't resist. She just emphasized this point once more. Since you said it, of course I believe you. It was rare for Rui Wen to say such accurate words. Luo Nan really didn't dare to refuse. He was afraid that this little girl would take things too hard and run into the radiation zone to dig anew. It would be good to take advantage of this opportunity to let her slow down. Since it was decided, Luo Nan subconsciously began to draw up a plan in his mind. According to Rui Wen's demonstration of the transformation process, it would take around 3 months for 1 or 2 large-scale domain fragments to be thrown out. It could be said that time was ample, but it could also be said that he was nervous. First, he needed to conduct a step further of monitoring. He needed to gather more data and verify the trend of transformation that Rui Wen demonstrated. Doing this to the radiation zone would more or less require some risk. It was just that it couldn't be compared to what Rui Wen had experienced. Naturally, he needed to arrive there and make contact with that place. Only then could he truly confirm and carry out the transformation project. But even at the end of Rui Wen's demonstration, the location of the large-scale fragment was at the edge of the radiation zone. This edge wasn't a simple outer region. It was a relatively safe zone within the distorted maze structure. He needed to properly plan his route if he wanted to arrive. This was a very severe challenge. If he failed, he would fall into the radiation zone. He would be pulled by the gravitational sphere, and it was very likely that he would have to face the onslaught of the sun will hell once more. In other words, I need to make preparations to detonate and endure the daytime nightmare once more. At least once. Luo Nan muttered to himself as he sorted out his thoughts. In this case, he needed to wait until the altar's spiderweb was completely restored for the sake of safety. Only with this safety net could he buffer and precipitate the flood of information that he was unable to digest. Luo Nan even thought that even with this safety net, he couldn't use it too many times. Not to mention the limits of what he could endure, the occasional daytime nightmare could be attributed to a natural phenomenon as much as possible, or it could be concealed by an occasional accident. But if it were to appear at a high frequency, some people would certainly discover some clues. Yes, Luo Nan was referring to the awesome High Lord of Secret Contract, the one who monitored the abyssal region all year round. Of course, there was also Li Wei. If they were to really discover some clues, it would be a great deal of trouble in the future. It's best if I don't do it more than once. Luo Nan raised his standards. Rui Wen didn't quite understand. She turned to look at him. Luo Nan locked gazes with the young girl's deep and pure eyes. He subconsciously exerted force to rub her head. Rui Wen didn't say a word, allowing him to rub her head. It must be said that Rui Wen's talent had already reached a level that defied common sense. Though talent itself was a certain distance away from common sense, no matter how strong it was, it still needed to conform to basic laws, right? When a certain ability far exceeded the scope of a race's inheritance, far exceeded the prior perceptual regulations of a race. Even if it was a difference of 1 or more dimensions, it wouldn't be as simple as a folktale like the opening of Heaven's Eye. Sometimes, the fantasies of humans far exceeded the regulations of reality. But when these fantasies truly materialized and appeared before the eyes of people, she really was like a humanoid fantasy breed. Ah, this thought. It was too excessive. Luo Nan quickly rubbed Rui Wen's head twice, and the young girl tilted her head a bit doubtfully. Luo Nan increased his strength and revealed a smile to the young girl. But at this moment, he couldn't avoid letting go of his thoughts. Was Rui Wen's ability really a talent that belonged to humans? If it was, where was the foundation? If it wasn't, where did it come from? Well, Luo Nan could roughly guess a bit. After leaving the misty maze, Luo Nan let Rui Wen return to class. He quickly dialed a number. Mr. Blood Demon, I want to ask you about something. Right now, Blood Demon was already a key figure in Luo Nan's communication with the Eye of Secret Deeds and the Starry Sky Club. This person was deeply involved in the follow-up global census project. Everyone was already very familiar with each other, so Luo Nan bluntly asked, how much do you know about Li Wei's Apocalypse Laboratory and the Bloodline Project? Why did you suddenly think of asking about this? The blood demon chuckled. It was obvious that he was adjusting his mind. Aren't you preparing for the global census? Speaking of which, I've been waiting for you here in Ha City for quite some time. It's a mess over here. Luo Nan was a bit dissatisfied with Blood Demon's vague attitude. He responded, can't I investigate the Bloodline project in Ha City? Oh, what rumors did you hear? Blood Demon's tone tightened a bit, becoming much more solemn. It seemed like there was a mistake. Luo Nan's mind stirred slightly, and his words became a bit vague. There weren't any rumors. I'm just interested in a few special talents. Blood Demon responded with a question, which one of us isn't a special talent? Luo Nan responded calmly, the kind that far surpasses the level of human life. You? In any case, it's not me. Blood Demon laughed heartily as if he had heard the most absurd joke in the world. Okay. I have a general idea of what's going on. As for the Apocalypse Laboratory, to be honest, I've researched and understood them before, but I'm basically at the level of hearing wind and rain. There's no harm in asking more questions. Combining the opinions from all sides will never deviate too much from the truth. That's not necessarily true. The Apocalypse Laboratory is different from the Deep Blue Laboratory. The Apocalypse Laboratory is Li Wei's old foundation. It's a treasure. What's released right now might all be interference bullets. The Bloodline project is also interference bullets? That depends on what kind of Bloodline project you're talking about. Blood Demon listed them one by one. Is it a project to restore the youth of those old fellows whose necks are buried in the soil? Or is it a project to help humans unlock the genetic lock and make breakthroughs on the path of evolution? Or is it the legendary perfect template that can be used as a reference? Luo Nan thought for a moment. I feel like our tastes are about the same. Which one are you most interested in? Oh my, I'm really overwhelmed by the favor. Blood Demon was laughing and laughing on the surface, slippery and slippery, but he was very cooperative when it came to this. If it were me, I would obviously be more interested in the perfect template. Luo Nan muttered to himself, I remember Black Lion saying that the Bloodline project is conducted with reference to the perfect template for research. Don't blame me for biting off more than I can chew. The connotation and extension of the word perfect is enormous. Blood Demon interrupted Luo Nan's words. What level is perfect? A perfect person lives for over 100 years, never escaping from birth, old age, sickness, and death. A perfect God. That's a level that our imaginations can't reach. Someone came up with this kind of name. He's up to no good. Luo Nan frowned. The main point of your words is. The main point is still the name. Blood Demon chuckled. Don't you want to confirm this? Chapter 11:18. No, I just wanted to ask about Ruiwen. But now you've changed the topic. Luo Nan wasn't sure if Blood Demon had truly misunderstood, or if it was intentional. At a time like this, listening more and talking less was correct, but it was hard to understand without a head or tail. Luo Nan added vaguely, you can help me sort out the clues. Blood Demon gladly agreed, there are some things I need to ponder over. The Deep Blue project has been in development for less than a decade. The related products come one generation after another. The military's similar self-research projects are suppressed to the point where they can't lift their heads. The Bloodline project was established a generation earlier than Deep Blue. Not a single reliable rumor has leaked out, but there are still people madly pouring money into it. As far as I know, similar projects that are unrelated to the Apocalypse Laboratory have received less and less sponsorship in recent years. Especially the funding from the top circles of the rich and powerful. Oh my, it's truly a tragic sight. What does this mean? It means that your investment has failed. Luo Nan responded in his mind for the first time, but he remained silent in reality. The Blood Demon didn't have the ability of telepathy. He continued, is it because those rich people who have buried their necks in the soil are staking it all on one throw? Do they trust Li Wei that much? Do they trust this highly dangerous fellow of unknown origin? I can believe that one person is retarded, but all of them are retarded. It's better to believe that Li Wei has cast a collective curse on them. Luo Nan felt that blood demon could be a bit more direct. So, brother, you need to know that Li Wei is a fellow who is very good at persuading people. He is the expert who knows how to fight for research funding. He's on a completely different level than those great hoodwinkers who are used to using PowerPoint to tell stories. He's much better at using facts. At the very least, the salivating prospects that are based on a partial truth to convince people. The Li Wei that blood demon spoke of sounded more like the boss of a school. Luo Nan's lips twitched. So, the results of the Bloodline project have already been placed before those people's eyes. They have obtained approval. Yes, they should have achieved extraordinary success. Luo Nan's mind suddenly stirred when he said the word extraordinary. A few faintly discernible figures quickly flashed through his mind, but his mouth didn't pause. If you want to prove your success, you have to do it in a circle that's neither too big nor too small. Success itself needs some fame, but you have to do it discreetly. Most of the time, you have to change your appearance. It's still success, but what they think of as success is different from what we think of as success. In the end, the Bloodline project is a project to study people. Its most convincing results are also people. Such as Rui Wen, Luo Nan's understanding of the Bloodline project suddenly deepened by a level as he thought back to the matter of the 2000th young miss. That was how it was strung together. No wonder the blood demon kept mentioning names after he suspected that there was a misunderstanding. It was true that only the names that were deeply related to the Bloodline project could prove the real value of the Bloodline project. If he added the keywords that caused the blood demon's misunderstanding, Ha City, which famous person in Ha City? Forgive Luo Nan for his shallow knowledge, but he only knew of one person. Apollyon. The one who was publicly acknowledged as one of the 16 strongest extraordinaries, the one who dominated the new continent, and the one who formed a restrictive contract with the High Lord of the Secret Contract, was actually related to the Bloodline project? In that case, what was the purpose of High Lord's Secret Contract's challenge? The background behind the scenes was much more complicated than what he knew. Luo Nan couldn't figure it out for a time. Naturally, he had to ask again. But there was no need to mention Apollyon's name at this time. The main thing was that he could feel that the name Blood Demon spoke of was not singular, but plural. So he might as well speak a bit more openly. Mr. Blood Demon, I'll ask you this. There are less than 100 extraordinaries standing at the apex of the world right now. How many of them are related to the Bloodline project? Or perhaps they were released by the Apocalypse Laboratory. These words lingered in Luo Nan's chest. Luo Nan's mind was truly awed when he actually said them. Li Wei's influence on Earth had already reached such a deep level. It was probably because Blood Demon had long since made up his mind. Luo Nan just laughed out loud when he pointed it out. From what I'm saying, anyone who is close to the Apocalypse Laboratory and Li Wei is a suspect. There's no need to talk about Wang Yong that day on the ship. It's possible that Tu Gu. Thousands of miles away, Luo Nan shook his head slightly when Blood Demon spoke of Tu Gu. But he didn't interrupt Blood Demon's words. Luo Nan continued to listen. A bit more extreme. After Li Wei took control of the Deep Blue World and established the Apocalypse Laboratory, any extraordinaries who are close to him are suspects. After all, the extraordinaries have only appeared for 30 years or so from the time they have grown to their current scale. It's not a short time, but it's far too fast when it comes to the level of human evolution. It's so fast that it feels unreal. It would be a bit easier for me to accept if someone was manipulating things from behind. This sort of thinking was really hard to accept, right? Especially when you're an extraordinary. Luo Nan's eyebrows jumped. This fellow Blood Demon seemed to have a carefree and uninhibited appearance, but his mind was unexpectedly a bit dark. You're quite confident in Li Wei. No. I just hope that you can take things a step further before you go to Ha City. After all, the entire world knows that you're competing with Li Wei. You can't not understand the weight on the other side before you go to the boxing stage, right? Blood Demon spoke in a candid manner. We can be considered to be on the same side right now. I have to do a bit of a reminder. A reminder that Li Wei's energy is beyond imagination. Luo Nan grew more and more suspicious that Blood Demon's misunderstanding today was intentional. This fellow seemed to have been waiting for such an opportunity. Blood Demon chuckled. Speaking of energy, I've thought of another example. You should know that the situation here isn't too good. Yes, I know. Though Luo Nan resided in Xia City, he was constantly paying attention to Ha City, the center of the storm of the mutant infection outbreak. He was even secretly drawing portraits of the large quantities of mutant-infected people in the city, establishing a model for the step selection of Phase 2 infected people. Plus, he had gathered all sorts of news and intelligence reports. His understanding of Ha City was no less than anyone else's. You understand the situation of Phase 2 and Phase 3 as well. It's very troublesome. Luo Nan responded simply. He searched for 2 more keywords: riots. Lack of food. Yeah. Lack of food. Blood Demon chuckled. In modern society, words like lack of food, or the more serious term, famine, seem to be extremely far away. But in Ha City right now, these words went from pure concepts to gradually becoming reality. Due to the mutant infection being completely out of control, the number of infected people in Ha City increased explosively. There were also large amounts of highly dangerous people who were transforming from Phase 2 to Phase 3. The mutant process of these people was already irreversible. Their primordial genes had collapsed and mutated. They were rapidly transforming in the direction of mutant species. This transformation process was extremely fast, and it involved a mutation on the fleshly plane. It was necessary to absorb large amounts of squandered energy in a short period of time. Such an energy requirement was destined to be impossible to satisfy with 3 normal meals a day. Therefore, the infected in this stage would transform into the craziest of predators. Under the drive of chaotic and manic emotions, they would seize all resources that they could use. Things that could be edible and digestible were included. From ordinary food to other fleshly creatures, including people. In a normal city, the appearance of 1 or 2 infected people like this could lead to a series of bloody cases. And in today's Ha City, there were far more than 1 or 200 or even 1 or 2,000 infected people. Thus, riots, massacres, and even famines emerged as the times required. Mutant conversion was an inefficient energy intake method that relied on probability. It would inevitably lead to a large amount of waste. In addition to the influence of social unrest, Ha City's basic mode of existence as a modern metropolis had nearly completely collapsed. Luo Nan was recalling and also monitoring Ha City's situation in real time. If Ha City continues to be in this state, the aid will not be able to keep up. It will be hard to avoid a great famine. However, the current situation is more of a temporary phenomenon caused by accidents, right? There was no need for secret intelligence. Right now, a few conservative news channels were reporting over and over again. Ha City's largest cultivation buildings had caught fire and exploded due to the effects of the riots. The energy supply lines were destroyed, and a considerable portion of the food that was about to be harvested and sold on the market was destroyed. This caused the price of food in the city to skyrocket. The citizens were panic-stricken and panic-stricken. Bread was hard to find. Let's not discuss lack of food, or famine, today. Blood Demon chuckled twice. The example I'm looking for is actually the cultivation buildings. Oh. You know that the cultivation buildings were one of the most important foundational supports for several dozen large metropolises to be built after World War III. Right now, the world's population of 10 billion has already recovered to the level it was before World War III. The population of 10 billion before World War III was basically the limit that the world could bear. After World War III, the world's arable land area exploded from 17 million square kilometers to 1.7 million square kilometers. Under these circumstances, the world was able to support the same number of people even though it had shrunk by 90%. That's right. Luo Nan knew this knowledge since he was in elementary school. The cultivation buildings were undoubtedly the crystallization of the world's agricultural, chemical, and energy technologies that advanced by leaps and bounds. It was also a necessary test point for geography or biology tests. Blood Demon suddenly asked, "What is the essence of the cultivation buildings?" Luo Nan answered without hesitation, "Energy in exchange for output." Where does energy come from? Fusion reactors. Where does fusion reactors come from? From. Luo Nan was suddenly stuck. He didn't continue for a time. Blood Demon continued to ask him, unwilling to let him go. Where does fusion reactors come from? Who holds the technology patents? Why is it that before World War III, the practical application of fusion reactors was always 50 years later? Why did this technology suddenly mature after the war when everything was in ruins? It went from practical application to miniaturization in one go. Luo Nan couldn't answer. Blood Demon still didn't give up. At present, fusion reactors still use magnetic confinement fusion technology. Room temperature superconductors must be used to form an ultra-strong magnetic field. Where does this special, cutting-edge material come from? Okay. Where? Luo Nan asked, knowing the answer. Blood Demon's answer was nothing new. Deep Blue World. Li Wei sighed. Chapter 11:19. This time, Luo Nan just chuckled twice. Blood Demon gave him a few words of explanation. The Deep Blue World has a special mineral deposit that doesn't exist on Earth. The Apocalypse Laboratory calls it progenitor. Its specific properties aren't too clear, but it's said to be a half-energized marvel. It's extremely difficult to harvest. Some intelligence says that it's impossible to do with the current level of technology. Of course, it's hard to say whether or not Li Wei can succeed. Progenitor. Is it the type that the Deep Blue Walkers use as fuel for their backup energy system? Luo Nan had done in-depth research on the Deep Blue platform. He immediately flipped through the relevant information in his mind. That's progenitor with low purity. To be precise, it's just the impurities of or that have received the energy radiation of progenitor. It's formed through special purification techniques. It can barely be considered a companion ore. No, it really can't be considered a companion ore. The true companion ore is none other than the super-strong magnetic field that wraps the progenitor or within, the ghost stone. This is the origin of the superconducting revolution after World War III. The electrical signal that carried Blood Demon's explanation was transformed into sound waves that entered Luo Nan's ears. It stirred, causing him to let out an extremely faint sigh. The superconducting revolution. TSK. Another pillar of the modern metropolis, the transportation and energy supply network that was like the blood vessels of the human body, as well as the countless basic materials and technical fields, were actually engraved with Li Wei's imprint from the very roots. Li Wei was truly a boss-type fellow. And this was just the part that he had shown to the people. Many people, including Blood Demon, should be able to guess that the core that supported this powerful power far surpassed the level that Earth's current civilization should be able to display. But so far, Luo Nan had not seen any particularly obvious or decisive evidence, be it from the mouth of the Blood Demon or from the information he had obtained from his own understanding. If given the chance, there would probably be quite a few people in the world who would grab Luo Nan by the collar and interrogate him. Where in the world did you copy that configuration and superconfiguration theory from? But Li Wei didn't seem to know where to start even if they were to interrogate him. In this regard, he seemed to be a bit more low-key than Luo Nan. Frankly speaking, this was because of Li Wei's deep foundation on Earth. It was incomparable. This demon from beyond could not be viewed as a simple isolated individual. It was just like in an RPG game. Before seeing the final boss, one would have to struggle through endless levels for a while. Luo Nan thought for a few seconds. Then he thought about it and finally chuckled, "Okay, I get it. Thanks for telling me. Let's talk in detail when we meet later." After thinking about it for a while, he finally chuckled and said, "All right, I understand. Thank you for telling me. Let's talk in detail when we meet again." Blood Demon replied, "Sure. We'll talk in detail when we meet." The call ended, and Luo Nan could not help but think a few more things. Li Wei had such a common and close relationship with the extraordinaries of the world. What about the Blood Demon? Blood Demon Demon Luo Demon Demon Blood Demon. Luo Nan actually didn't feel anything strange at all. He shook his head slightly and strolled through the underground laboratory. This position was merely a few walls away from the independent power station that supplied energy to the entire North Bank gear. With Luo Nan's perceptual acuity, he was even able to clearly hear the humming roar of the operation of the energy furnace. Luo Nan's thoughts drifted a bit when he heard this voice. He still remembered that he had borrowed the power station's reserve energy to discover some of the secrets of the external neuron. Now that he thought about it, there were many details that could be explored. In today's world, all technological devices, at least intelligent electrical devices, had no resistance against the external neuron. Well, it should be said that the dynamo core products that Luo Nan had seen were in a nearly defenseless state. At first, Luo Nan treated it as an extraterrestrial higher-level civilization crushing a lower-level civilization. But as he continued to study and research, especially after the experience at the relay station, he gained a deeper understanding of dynamo core technology. All sorts of functions that came from the unknown returned to the plane of reality. Some functional domains of dynamo core technology were more mystical than what Luo Nan imagined. But some of them still had inherent limitations. They had to conform to basic laws no matter what. For example, the control of electrical devices. If the two structures were completely different, even the lowest level of information coding was different, what control was there to talk about? The reason why dynamo core products were able to do this was because there was no difference in the lowest level. Instead, there was a high degree of convergence. The dynamo core technology that came from the depths of the distant starry sky was completely compatible with the information technology of Earth. Weren't there too many coincidences in the universe? Luo Nan was more convinced that there was a long and deep fusion going on inside than this kind of imagination. Moreover, the weak side was leaning towards the strong side. It was truly meticulous. Luo Nan had already walked out of the North Shore jungle while his thoughts were floating. He arrived at the empty campus. Since it was class time, there were very few people on the large campus of Acumen College. The few people he saw were all in a hurry. Most of the students and teachers were arranged according to their classes. They were arranged into classrooms of various sizes. The school had its own rules and regulations to restrict them. Luo Nan, who had already entered a state of suspension, was a complete anomaly at this time. Of course, there were tens of thousands of students and even teachers in the school. There were many who were impatient with the restrictions of the past. They skipped classes, asked for leave, and were absent from work. Even though some people were in the classroom, their minds were wandering. Some people could even see Luo Nan strolling leisurely on the campus through the windows. It was unknown how envious they were in their hearts. Of course, they were merely envious of Luo Nan's freedom. If these people were to know what sort of price they would have to pay in order to have Luo Nan's current treatment, what sort of pressure they would have to endure, or perhaps they would be restricted by a completely new and unknown set of rules, the vast majority of them would immediately extinguish the thoughts in their hearts. After all, if you had to completely change your current lifestyle habits, even if you had to bet your future as the price, most people would feel that there was nothing wrong with the present. This was habit and order. Luo Nan absolutely did not dislike order. He even had a relatively strong inclination towards order. But once he clearly identified the layer of darkness that covered the skeleton that supported this layer of order on the surface, the inner marrow that quietly grew within it, and the genes and cells that were rooted upon it, a heavy pressure spontaneously arose from the bottom of his heart. Vaguely, this pressure seemed to transform into a dense demonic shadow that silently pressed against the back of his head. It could break his flesh and scrape his bones at any time to deal a fatal blow. At this time, the so-called order was quite hateful. Luo Nan rubbed the back of his head and muttered to himself, in order to maintain the entropy decrease within a system, there must be a channel to handle the entropy increase. That channel. Where is the sewage pipe that conforms to the relevant magnitude? If he wanted to subvert this order, where should he start? June 16, 2097. The third Sunday of June. Influenced by a certain powerful civilization before the Third World War, it was also known as Father's Day. It was basically one of the world's commemorative days of consumerism. This morning, Luo Nan's family finally broke free from the demonic claws woven by Mrs. Luo Shuqing and the home AI, Old Mo. After working overtime for many days, Uncle Mo Haiheng finally had the time to rest. He personally cooked a sumptuous and delicious breakfast for everyone. And today, the entire family was gathered together. Even that idiot Mo Peng actually crawled out of bed before lunch on the weekend. The 6 of them surrounded the table. They weren't pressed by the time of work or school. They spoke one after another, chatting as they ate. They were quite amused. Right now, the main topic at the dining table was Rui Wen. Mo Peng gulped down his breakfast in a few gulps and concentrated on gossiping. Last night, someone posted a practice video. Rui Wen didn't participate in the video, but what's the meaning of her repeatedly appearing in the camera? Rui Wen was talking about Rui Wen, but Mo Peng's eyes shot a glance at Imoya. Mingtang culture is simply leaking air from all sides. Even I wouldn't go to this extent. Is there an end to this hype? Rui Wen didn't respond at all. She just ate in small bites. She looked quiet and delicate, but it also seemed like she was tasting the fresh fragrance of each mouthful of porridge soup. It was unknown what these ordinary foods looked like in the end from the level of her perception. Luo Nan looked at Rui Wen for a long time. He subconsciously wanted to reach out and rub her head. At this time, Moya leisurely picked up a sesame pancake and tore it open. Since you know it's hype, why are you still wasting time? Can't I pay attention to a beauty? Mo Peng spoke boldly and confidently, but as a result, he was met with a cold glare from Mrs. Luo Shuqing. His momentum immediately fell to the ground and he laughed. I just think you guys are going too far. There are already people in our class who are betting on whether or not Rui Wen will make her debut. I heard that there are people on the internet who are starting a fan club. If this goes on, it won't be easy to clean up the mess. Moya was like Rui Wen. She ate the pancake in small bites. It was just that she was the one who made it. She ate the staple food like it was a snack. It won't be easy to clean up the mess. It's convenient for you to earn money. You can have Rui Wen sign it and sell it outside. No. Absolutely not. Mo Peng received the unfathomable gazes of his parents at the same time. He nearly peed his pants in fright. He immediately raised his hand and cried out in injustice, I used it myself. I just wanted to ride on the popularity and draw some attention online. I wanted to gain a few more fans. Really? Mrs. Luo Shuqing's expression remained unfriendly. Mo Haiheng dismissed it with a laugh. His gaze turned to Moya. Your company has gone a bit overboard these past 2 days. At first, it could be said that they were protecting him, but now that we've seen the results, they're still unwilling to stop. Who knows what kind of trouble they'll cause in the future. If it's not convenient for you to tell me, I'll talk to them. Moya shrugged. What's so inconvenient about it? They've obviously been blinded by the heat these past 2 days. Speaking up to this point, Moya asked, the demonstration hasn't stopped until now. Does the government have any sincerity? Don't let those old matters cause problems in the end before the mutation infection is messed up. Mo Haiheng shook his head. It's not easy to go through the files. He played the same old trick, casually changing the topic. He looked at Luo Nan, you're going out today. Luo Nan grinned, yeah, I came back before dinner. Chapter 11:20. Not long after Luo Nan vaguely reported his itinerary, an overseas call came in. It was his former secretary, Yin Lu. She was currently the vice chairman of the Luo Nan and his Friends Foundation. She was in charge of the foundation's daily work. Luo Nan took advantage of this opportunity to leave. Mister, your itinerary remains the same today? Yes, I'll be leaving right away. Luo Nan turned around and waved to his family. He went upstairs to change his clothes. Mrs. Luo Shuqing confirmed from behind, "Are you eating at home tonight?" "Yes, yes." Luo Nan responded casually. Yin Lu spoke at this time, "Mister, are you going by yourself?" Luo Nan returned to his room. He adjusted his clothes as he spoke, "Of course I'm going by myself. It's the most convenient." Yin Lu had already called him last night. The reason why she was so concerned was because she was the one who provided the coordinates for Luo Nan's destination today. It was an abandoned laboratory located northwest of Spring City at the southern end of the Hengduan Mountains. It was also the place where Luo Nan's mother, Mrs. Bo Qingwen, had died. Luo Nan wished to go there to offer his sacrifice. This was something he had desired ever since he could remember, but he was unable to do so. Today was Luo Nan's birthday, and it was also the anniversary of Bo Qingwen's death. He wouldn't delay any longer no matter what. "It's like this, mister." Yin Lu did her best to sense Luo Nan's emotions. She spoke carefully, "I reported to you that I found an informant when I confirmed the coordinates. He worked in the laboratory back then. Today, he found me and said that someone hired him to lead the way to the laboratory ruins. It seemed to be for the sake of offering his sacrifice. He asked me if I was one of them." Luo Nan furrowed his brows. "Who's the employer?" "He's not too sure. He said it was arranged by the boss." Yin Lu paused for a moment. Seeing that Luo Nan didn't immediately ask for details, she explained softly, "It's been half a year since the end of last year until now. Several groups of people have confirmed the location of the laboratory ruins through him. Right now, the pattern has already been set." "I know. It's my problem." Luo Nan had long understood this point. It was nothing more than his radiance during this period of time. People coveted him, wanting to trace back to the source and obtain some benefits. After the series of events with Snake Tongue and Jean Tong, these people didn't dare to come to Xia City. Otherwise, places like the North Bank Gear and the Tree Hole Space would have been sieved several times. They couldn't come to Xia City, so some of them went to the wilderness to search for traces of the Luo family's laboratory. The exposure of the Luo cult and the 70 format laboratory back then might have had a lot to do with Luo Nan. Right now, both sides had Luo Nan's telepathic lock onto them, and there were people searching elsewhere. They searched, and they found this place. Luo Nan laughed and didn't mention it again. He looked at himself in the mirror and went downstairs. He asked Yin Lu, "Is there anything else?" Indeed, there were. Yin Lu became more careful with her words. "The foundation will send employees to various places and establish offices. Some cities need to submit information, especially the census plan. They can only proceed to the next step after the review." Luo Nan laughed. "Ha City and Shi City are in such a mess. Do you want them?" It just so happened that he was walking to the staircase on the first floor. When he heard the keywords Ha City and Shi City, everyone in the family, including Madame Luo Shuqing, looked over. They looked at Luo Nan's side, white on the inside and black on the outside. His clothes were concise and solemn. They were a bit stunned. Luo Nan waved his hand at them and quickly left through the living room. "Their attitude is very firm." Yin Lu replied in a low voice. "The voices of support are very loud." This matter involved the operation of the Luo Nan and his friends' foundation, as well as the direction of the future global census. Luo Nan had already set the tone on this point. If they wanted to do a census, they would start with Ha City and Shi City, where the contradictions were the sharpest and the most chaotic. It seemed like the contradictions were sharp, but it was actually easier to fish in troubled waters. They could even blur the focus when necessary. But to do all this, they needed the full support of the city administrators. Of course, the most important ones were Apollon and Bat Guru. Putting the latter aside, no matter how difficult it was to deal with Apollon, he had the eye of the secret contract to mediate in the middle. There shouldn't be any major problems. But Luo Nan had communicated with Blood Demon last time. He had to pay attention to the subtle relationship between Apollon, the Apocalypse Laboratory, and Li Wei. But before Luo Nan could pay attention, a demonic moth appeared on the other side. The census plan and a series of information could be coarse or fine. The audit could be lenient or strict. This was a common method used by the administration to control people. They didn't need to control people. They could grasp the progress through the plan and understand the substantial progress of the global census. If Ha City and Shi City were like this, then the 86 cities would follow suit. The Foundation wouldn't need to do any work in the future. Luo Nan wasn't angry when he encountered this matter. From his perspective, it was much better for Ha City to send a demonic moth this early than for the Foundation to toss and turn after it had fully started its work. On the contrary, it had the effect of a warning. Besides, who would really count on the Foundation to do a census? If the spearhead were to be pointed over there, it could be considered as helping to cover up. Thinking about it this way, Luo Nan felt that there was a tacit understanding between him and Apollon. Do as they ask. There's no need to be anxious. Yes. Also, there's something else. It's about Miss Ruiwen. Luo Nan was already strolling along the community road. He subconsciously turned his head when he heard Ruiwen. He felt that Ruiwen could hear the sound coming from across the ocean. Yin-lu didn't know Luo Nan's reaction. She just said, Mingtang culture's face was vague in this matter. They did a bunch of stupid things. It's because of my improper management. Mingtang Culture was indeed a company invested in by the Castle Financial Group. Yin-lu had taken the initiative to communicate and apologize. But Luo Nan didn't really care about this. In fact, with the current situation, the first one to be ambiguous was himself. This was because Luo Nan really didn't understand the abnormal attention and concern Ruiwen displayed in this public matter. It was hard to make a conclusion on what kind of problem it was. Perhaps this was an opportunity. It could enrich Ruiwen's overly monotonous life and help this little girl perfect her basic thinking circuits. It wasn't a bad thing. Of course, this couldn't be built on the foundation of psychological harm. The problem was, could this degree of disturbance really harm Ruiwen? Luo Nan didn't feel that this was a possibility for now. Aside from this, Luo Nan had an independent train of thought. It was just that it wasn't clear and mature enough. It was still faintly discernible. He needed to sort it out a bit more. Mingtang culture doesn't matter. Let's wait a bit more. Let's see what happens next. Yes. Yin-lu was most likely more concerned about whether or not Luo Nan would get angry. She let out a sigh of relief when she saw him play it down. But there were some words that needed to be said. The upper echelons of Mingtang culture are mostly mediocre people. They aren't suited to have too much autonomy in this matter. If you don't mind, sir, you can use this opportunity to transfer a portion of the shares and the corresponding decision-making power. This will lower the risk to a minimum. Luo Nan slowly walked out of the community and arrived at the outer road. What do you mean? Yin-lu spoke of the scheme in her mind. Miss Moya is an insider and she's also your closest family member. She can hold at least a portion of the shares and have the right to speak on Mingtang culture's internal decisions. Moya? I'm afraid she doesn't have the patience. Mr. Mo and Ms. Luo can do it as well. Okay. I'll go talk to them later. Yin Li's words made it seem like the Castle Financial Group was giving away shares to her. It involved a huge wealth of millions. But it really wasn't much compared to Luo Nan's close relationship with the Blood Flame Order. The two didn't take this matter too seriously. Yin-lu only needed to know that Luo Nan wouldn't refuse. She didn't need to worry about the follow-up. But this didn't mean that Yin Li's matter was over. She used this opportunity to report to the Blood Flame Order. She followed Luo Nan's instructions to simulate the progress of the Hellfire Tyrant. Luo Nan actually had a deeper understanding of this than Yin-lu. Yin-lu just used this as a primer to lead to another matter. Recently, the madam has been studying the simulation while she's been in closed-door training. She has some insights and wants to share them with you, Huh? Luo Nan raised his eyebrows. Lu, who was tens of thousands of kilometers away, couldn't follow up with this one sound. This made Luo Nan understand that Lu knew that her words were taboo. Ultimately, the connection between Luo Nan and Madame Halder was deeper than Li's. It was just like how Luo Nan's understanding of the structure of the Blood Soul Temple in the Abyss District was deeper than everyone in the Blood Flame Order put together. She didn't use the direct route but instead used Lu to deliver the message. She deliberately drifted around. What was she planning? Luo Nan didn't quite understand. He didn't understand and Lu didn't understand either. She only had some guesses. And the more she guessed, the more guilty she felt. So she became more and more cautious around Luo Nan. Most of the things she said before were probably because she sensed Luo Nan's mood. She was afraid that she would bump into the muzzle of a gun. Luo Nan really didn't care about these little thoughts. She was actually willing to speak up for her old master. This courage was quite commendable. Huh? Was there a difference between the old and the new? Luo Nan felt a bit amused by his own subtle thoughts. He was already walking on the street right now, far away from the residential community. It was a weekend morning, and the flow of people was much less than usual. The streets were empty, but he felt the sea breeze, slowly dispelling the dry air of early summer. Continue speaking. Li's voice grew weaker and weaker. Sir, the madam's meaning is that you just so happen to be going to Spring City. Yes, Spring City. Luo Nan turned his head and looked at the silhouette of the rising sun behind the scale-like clouds behind the tall buildings. He slightly narrowed his eyes and waited for the sun to shift in the clouds. The brightness and obscurity changed. Finally, rays of light filled the void and streaked through the gaps between the buildings. They shone on his body, and his skeleton suddenly turned transparent. He disappeared without a trace in the blind spots of pedestrians and surveillance cameras. But in the next second, all the electrical equipment in the surrounding 100-meter diameter area suddenly short-circuited. The street soon turned into a chaotic mess. Luo Nan felt a bit of what he had created, but he had no way to do it for the time being. He lifted his hand and moved his fleshly body. The distance was quite far, and he didn't have the anchor point of the horned demon last time. It was hard to avoid a bit of power leaking out. The smoke and fire were a bit heavy, and it was hard to avoid President Ouyang's reprimand. Luo Nan just turned his head again. He used the position and height of the sun to confirm his current location in the cracked, deathly stillness of the wasteland. At the same time, he spoke to Lu, who had just reconnected with the communication. It's a bit remote. I'll go look for her when I'm done. Chapter 11:21. Luo Nan hung up, and his gaze shifted from the sun to the vast and sparse cloud layer. He continued to ponder. How did it deviate? It was quite far off. The distance between him and his destination was nearly 300 kilometers. Right now, he was a bit closer to the satellite city outside of Spring City. Though Luo Nan had intentionally made adjustments to avoid the impact of crossing space and directly colliding with the laboratory ruins, the error was so large that he had no choice but to ponder over it. In his field of vision, the appearance of the sun or the clouds was different from that of an ordinary person. It could be said that it had already broken the scope of common sense that had been transmitted in an orderly fashion over several thousand years of civilization. It had merged into the extremely complex structure of space and time. At this time, the magnetic optical mica was extending its enormous body that seemed to be broken in parts. It roughly enveloped the surface area of the planet, which was over 500 million square kilometers. It was still not satisfied with this. It borrowed the special nature of the Earth's magnetic field to merge its own magnetism into the planet's crust, mantle, and crust. It intersected with the different rotational speeds of the different layers of regions. It felt or attempted to play with the spatial magnetic field of this planet, and it fused with the surrounding distorted structure of space and time. At the same time, it closely followed the impact of the solar wind on the Earth's magnetic field. It mixed with the stream of rays and particles ejected from the polar regions. It naturally changed its nature and flowed deeper into the universe's space. It looked wanton and random, completely disregarding the integrity of its form. Or perhaps, as long as the subtle and profound magnetic structure existed, no matter how it tore and deformed, its essence was still one. As for whether or not its creator and controller could keep up, that was another matter. Of course, the magnetic optical mica had a reserved instinct in its endless process of expansion. Within the range of influence of its magnetic field, the magnetic optical mica used its special perspective to observe everything that existed in this area. It attempted to dismantle and piece them together into a more suitable structure. From Luo Nan's perspective, this could be considered a kind of aesthetic. Well, if he followed the magnetic optical mica's aesthetic taste, the world had a population of over 10 billion people. There were animals, plants, microorganisms, mutants, and other non-living existences that were trillions and trillions of times more numerous than humans. This included water, soil, minerals, and other non-living existences. It could be done slowly, or it could be done in an instant after accumulating enough energy. Every time Luo Nan touched the magnetic optical mica, he would feel a sense of accomplishment, as if he had saved the world. Fortunately, he managed to control this terrifying nature that humans could not understand, and did not let this being that he had created with the potential of a great monarch completely distort all life on Earth and even the space and time of its existence. The question was, who made this thing? No matter what, it was now under control. At the very least, there were no signs of it starting. Now that he thought about it, the magnetite mica he had encountered at the relay station was extremely powerful and had single-handedly suppressed the Heavenly Yuan Empire's army. However, if one were to look into it carefully, it was probably also restricted by the poisonous environment. Its range of influence was greatly reduced, and it only occupied a single planet. The distortion of space-time environment was also not strong enough. As for the one on Earth, it was still controlled, wasn't it? Luo Nan's mind raced a few times before he found the root of the problem lay in the restrictions. It was precisely because of his restrictions that the magnetic optical mica was unable to completely mold the space-time environment according to its aesthetic standards. There were certain rules and differences between the space-time of Earth and Earth. When Luo Nan came over, he relied on the cloud energy phantom of the magnetic optical mica that covered the entire world to realize the teleportation and shuttle. He followed the laws of the magnetic optical mica, and this formed a certain deviation from the true environment of Earth's spacetime. Luo Nan's recent experiments had all been conducted in the vicinity of Xia City. Even if there was a deviation, it wouldn't be too obvious. The only time he had done a long-distance teleportation, he had anchored the remains of the horned demon. It didn't have any value as a reference. Sure enough, there was no such thing as a perfect success in the first experiment. It was easy to improve after knowing the problem. Luo Nan already had a plan in mind. If he wanted to borrow the magnetic optical mica's fast tunnel and eliminate the error inside, he would either have to release the nature of the magnetic optical mica and let the Earth's spacetime it covered distort into the way it wished to. Or he would have to perform a correction calculation between the magnetic optical mica and the local spacetime. This could be solved with a configuration design. Luo Nan obviously chose the latter. Even if he had to expend a bit more mental energy, it would save him 100 times more energy than when he used the Luo clan sandwich domain to forcefully break through the barrier between the two worlds and realize the teleportation leap. Then again, sometimes the stupidest method was the most correct method. If he wanted to go a step further in his understanding of spacetime configuration, he could refer to the experience of a senior sovereign rank fantasy breed like the magnetic optical mica, but it wasn't appropriate to borrow it too often. It was better to balance things out. Luo Nan pondered and reflected in the wilderness for a bit. In the end, he still had to go do proper business. The wilderness wasn't like the main roads of Xia City. As long as he left the metropolitan area, there would be countless dangers and troubles. In the end, he was near the outskirts of the city. The military had turned from defense to offense in recent years, slaughtering and driving away the extremely dangerous mutants in the surroundings. Even if there were 2 or 3 mutants that escaped the net, Luo Nan would be instantly warped by the magnetic optical mica from a distance of 10 kilometers away. They would be turned into mincemeat. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to make a useful toy. Luo Nan didn't care about anything else. He recalibrated the position of the laboratory ruins and prepared to move over. But right at this time, a few reactions unexpectedly bumped into his core sensing network from the direction of Spring City. He turned his head. A surging yellow dragon had already risen in the boundless wilderness behind him. It was the sand and dust kicked up by off-road vehicles. The other party was heading in this direction at high speeds. Of course, Luo Nan could leave them in the dust in the blink of an eye, but he still stopped and looked back with a bit of curiosity. Not long after, several armed off-road vehicles that clearly bore the colors of the military appeared at the edge of his field of vision. It was just that they were limited by the uneven terrain of the hills, making them appear and disappear. The people within the thick armor certainly didn't have Luo Nan's perceptual ability. But with the support of the modern technological system, they utilized satellites and radars to form a network. They could still discover Luo Nan's existence ahead of time. This was under the premise that Luo Nan didn't deliberately conceal himself. Therefore, there were weapons on the armored off-road vehicles long before Luo Nan could see them. They locked onto the target from afar, and there were even unmanned surveillance drones flying towards them. Luo Nan raised his eyebrows. He just stood there, waiting to see how the other party would haggle. And over a dozen kilometers away, Lieutenant Colonel Chen of the Spring City Close Defense Army scratched his head within the vehicle that was stirring with dust. Where did this person pop out from? Fortunately, they weren't on patrol today. The problem was that they weren't on patrol. If they were on patrol, they would send drones to interrogate this youth who had suddenly appeared outside the city. After distinguishing him clearly, they would detain him and beat him. It would be much more refreshing. But right now, the first thing he thought of was to circle around him. Even if one didn't think with their knees, one would know that this youth who had suddenly appeared in the boundless wilderness was either an idiot or a lucky person. Or he was a special character that needed special attention. Looking at his bare body, he didn't look like the brainless donkey traveler of the present age who used his feet to measure the wilderness. He was dressed as if he was going to attend a funeral. Lieutenant Colonel Chen subconsciously glanced behind him. This was because the key person in the escort this time was dressed a bit similar to the one over there. He looked behind him. The old man he was paying attention to was frowning and closing his eyes. He was doing his best to fight against his motion sickness. And the guide that he had specially hired was sitting there in a very restrained manner. On the other hand, the valiant and beautiful female graduate student was leisurely fiddling with the projection. Yes, this person had quite a high level of authority. As long as she didn't randomly take pictures, she could do whatever she wanted. Lieutenant Colonel Chen was still bickering when someone said in his ear, "This person looks familiar." Captain Cho. Cho Wei, who was beside him, was a bit lower in rank than Lieutenant Colonel Chen. But he had the halo of a Spring City hero. He was also a full-time member in charge of this security mission. Lieutenant Colonel Chen still valued Cho Wei's opinion, especially when Cho Wei's words had substance. "You've seen him before?" Cho Wei shook his head. "I think I saw him in the distributed information." "Huh?" Lieutenant Colonel Chen cast his gaze towards the onboard AI projection interface. It had long since analyzed the recorded image, but there were no results. He could basically confirm that this person wasn't a resident of Spring City. Then, where did the information come from? Lieutenant Colonel Chen could only ask. As a burner, Cho Wei's authority in certain areas was above his. "Hello, Junior Luo." Before Cho Wei could reply, the female graduate student had already turned on the communicator. She was probably calling the school. Lieutenant Colonel Chen frowned. Before he could say anything, his sensitive ears heard a faint echo from the other side. "Senior Sister Tang. I see you." Ah. The one who was surprised wasn't the other side, but the one in the car. The other side laughed. "I see you too." At this time, on the projected interface of the AI, the teenager waved his hand in the direction of the camera. Very quickly, the other side gave a thumbs up, looking like a poor backpacker asking for a ride. Lieutenant Colonel Chen only felt that it was absurd. At this moment, two people in the car spoke at the same time. Stop the car. The one who spoke was the female graduate student who had called earlier. The other was Captain Cho Wei, who was beside her. At this moment, the car was only about 2 kilometers away from the teenager. Lieutenant Colonel Chen subconsciously replied, "Stop now. Bring him up." The female graduate student replied matter-of-factly. Cho he actually didn't object. Lieutenant Colonel Chen's brows were tightly locked. Due to his trust in Cho he, a professional, he still readily agreed. Stop over there for a moment. 2 minutes later, the armored motorcade stopped. The teenager boarded the car without a trace of politeness. His mouth was quite sweet as he repeatedly said things like, "Sorry for the trouble everyone." As the commander, Lieutenant Colonel Chen actually didn't react. He just stared blankly at the information Cho he had pulled out. At this time, the old man in the back of the car who couldn't withstand the tossing and turning opened his eyes. He just happened to meet the teenager face to face. He was a bit muddle-headed from the motion sickness just now. "Hey, this is... You're Professor Wu." The teenager's attitude was very respectful. He still bowed in the narrow space. "I've often heard Senior Sister Tang and Senior Sister Tian mention you and Professor Pan." The old man in the car was Professor Wu Zunliang. He was older but his mind was first class. He was startled for a moment before he straightened his back. Tian Si. You're... Yes, she's mentioned you many times. Qingwen and Zhongheng's child, Luo Yuandao's grandson, Luo Nan. Luo Nan bowed again. "It's me, Professor Wu."